Saikyou bit into the fried meat of the thunder dragon, and the juicy prey splashed right into his face. In the west above the village, the traveler showed the prey the carcass of the thunder dragon, which he intended to turn into a gift. An eagle flew over the forest, as if announcing the approach of a stranger to the quiet human settlement. In the thickets remained a magic ring, and the traces of transportation suddenly ended among the leaves. The cart disappeared without a trace, leaving a trap and an empty clearing in the middle of the forest. Far under the mountains lay the village of Yon, where in the summer of the 1013th year they harvested crops. Village children ran between the fields, while adults worked near the windmills and tended the livestock. The old man by the well yawned widely, unaware that his old acquaintance was already approaching the village. On the road, Saikyou noticed the gate and a hungry guard who was waiting alone by the entrance. On the threshold, Saikyou cheerfully greeted the old man Keiyu, and he met the traveler with noticeable relief. They demanded a fee for entry, but Saikyou refused it, as he already considered himself part of the village community. Saikyou treated the rules as his own promises, and confidently showed that he had always followed them. In the kitchen, pieces of dragon meat hissed, and the hungry peasants greedily pounced on the unusual dish. Saikyou's generosity turned an ordinary dinner into a loud banquet, where everyone received more than expected. The high quality of the meat surprised the guests, and at the table they began to clarify the origin of such a luxurious prey. Distrust quickly turned into mockery, as the peasants did not believe that Saikyou himself had defeated the legendary dragon. Alma defended Saikyou when foreign jokes cast doubt on his honesty and courage. Her family acknowledged that the wealthy traveler could have bought the expensive prey, and suspicions turned into interest. The noise at the table mixed mockery with hints of marriage, turning the feast into an awkward matchmaking. When the evening laughter subsided, a satisfied Saikyou remained alone with thoughts about the overly generous reward. After the feast, Saikyou agreed to spend the night in the village, and the hosts brought another piece of meat to the tavern. In the room, Alma felt the strong movement of the child, while Saikyou attentively inquired about the progress of her pregnancy. The expectant mother reported that the birth was expected in about a month, and the child inside her was extremely lively. Finishing dinner, Saikyou decided to return next month, as soon as he finished his next journey. In the silence of the room, Saikyou remembered that he once died in Japan, and for his sins ended up in hell. Hellish life almost daily pushed the demon toward death, throwing increasingly stronger creatures against him. The war between Satan and Zeus made hell an endless battlefield, where Saikyou was constantly under threat. For 2 years, Saikyou survived among monsters, and gradually gained the strength and knowledge necessary for salvation. The rivalry between Satan and Zeus reached its peak when both supreme deities clashed in a devastating duel. Another clash covered the field with an explosion, and Saikyou decided that this time he truly died. The strike of the demon and the deity shattered the surroundings, but Saikyou miraculously survived the catastrophe and the end of the exhausting struggle. Regaining consciousness after the explosion, Saikyou found himself in another world, completely unlike Earth. Hiding his wings and horns under a human guise, Saikyou learned the village language and became a traveling merchant. The new life with simple joys seemed to Saikyou like a dream in which he finally received deserved peace. The hellish trials made him extraordinarily strong, so Saikyou perceived the safe life as a fair reward. Instead of another battle, Saikyou received a cozy room, delicious food, and a rare chance to simply rest. The demonic power allowed him to begin a slow rural life, without giving up the advantage over enemies. Alma entered the room and offered help, immediately attracting the attention of the tired traveler. Noticing Saikyou's worn hands, Alma brought him leather gloves made according to her father's craft. The gloves fit perfectly, and Saikyou's sincere praise made Alma blush with joy and embarrassment. Alma thanked him for the kind words, and Saikyou decided to keep her gift as a special memory. Before sleep, Saikyou was about to leave, while Alma was already imagining him as her future husband. Outside the door, Alma was embarrassed by her own dreams, and Saikyou awkwardly said goodbye and left her alone. An overly bold hint made Saikyou remember that a demon could not marry a human, even with invulnerable skin. Watching the family, Saikyou realized that demons do not age, and feared the inevitable loss of human loved ones. The sight of a happy family made Saikyou set aside the dream of a home, as he did not perceive a human future as long-lasting. The new morning unfolded peacefully over Yon, hiding behind the windmills the anxious thoughts of the wandering demon. After the meal, a burly peasant invited Saikyou to go fishing, and he went to the water together with the family. Near the shore, foreign glances revealed envy towards the gloves that Alma had sewn for Saikyou with her own hands. While fishing, the father categorically refused to give his daughter Saikyou, and the traveler dismissed suspicions about his intentions. Kakyu noticed that Alma saw more in him than just a traveling merchant, and this unpleasantly embarrassed him. Alma's weak health once confined her to bed, and doctors did not even hope that she would live to 10 years old. After becoming acquainted with meat and spices, Kakyu's girl began to recover, regaining energy and joy. The gratitude of the villagers made Kakyu remember how once he did not know their language, and now he had become indispensable to the community. A bite interrupted the conversation, and Kakyu focused on fishing, leaving the awkward words unanswered. On the shore, Kakyu and Alma's father argued between fishing and talking, until the fishing line pulled into the water. Having caught a large fish, Alma's father informed about the order from the center and the unexpected decision to join the army. The reason for the draft was the sharp increase in demon activity in the kingdom of Ural, which turned the village's peace into a dangerous illusion. Before leaving, the father asked Kakyu to take care of Alma and Ars if something happened to him. In the conversation, it was revealed that Ars was the name of the future boy awaited by the pregnant Juis. Kakyu was surprised by such trust, but eventually agreed to become a protector for the family he considered human. Caution made him avoid giving promises, although in his heart Kakyu had already decided not to leave Alma without help. A trading cart appeared outside the village, and Kakyu prepared to leave Yaln for a new journey. Before departure, he named the return date, received payment for the goods, and said goodbye to Alma's family. Alma's unexpected kiss caught Kakyu by surprise, finally turning the farewell into an emotional parting. As a thank you for the gloves, Kakyu gave Alma a necklace made of dragon scales, which moved the entire community. Seeing Alma's joy, Kakyu smiled, but still got into the cart and drove away from the village. On the road, the traveler returned to trading, exchanging rare goods for money and new opportunities. In the city quarters, Kakyu quickly established trade, not allowing nostalgia for Yaln to stop his path. In July, he was officially promoted to a mid-level trader, recognizing his successes and opening access to wealthier clients. The new status allowed Kakyu to make deals with nobles, so he set off for the royal capital Wyvern. In the capital's shop, Kakyu bought dark clothes to change his appearance and attract less attention as a traveler. Torgovitsia warned him about the expedition of the Holy Knights in the Urala region, but Kakyu did not give it due weight. Neighboring states appeared on the map, among which the church was searching for demons under the guise of a sacred mission. The Holy Knights set out for remote villages, where they could declare any incomprehensible event a demonic threat. Kakyu was troubled by rumors about knights capable of accusing innocent peasants and confiscating their property. Feeling danger, he used mana purification and decided to immediately return to Yaln. A bad premonition made Kakyu speed up his horse, although he did not want to openly use teleportation in a crowded place. Magical traces appeared in the clearing, and the traveler completed preparations for a quick transition. The cart materialized in the forest, after which Kakyu set off on the last stretch of the road to his native village. Making his way through tall grass, Kakyu felt a strange movement and cautiously scanned the surrounding area. Unease made him run forward, although no obvious enemy or trap was visible around. On the horizon, Kakyu saw black smoke and flames rising above the familiar windmills of Yaln. The realization of danger instantly changed his expression, and the traveler's calm gave way to panic. Kakyu noticed thick smoke over the village and realized that it was not a random hut burning, but the entire community. At first, he tried to calm down, explaining the smoke by kitchen stoves and seasonal burning of dry grass. When the smell of burning intensified, Kakyu discarded excuses and rushed forward, ready to save people. Familiar figures appeared on the street, but their movement through the fire no longer resembled the peaceful return of a traveler. The flames engulfed the houses, and Kakyu's hope to make sure everything was fine crumbled along with the roofs. In the center of the destroyed Yalna, Kakyu saw bodies and streets engulfed in flames, not finding Alma among the living. The fire roared around the survivors, and the cries of the wounded mixed with the crackling of wooden houses. Kakyu entered the burning village, despite the heat and danger blocking every path. Demonic rage appeared in his gaze when he saw the consequences of the attack on close people through the smoke. Injured villagers lay on the ashes, and Kakyu froze before the scale of the massacre, unable to save everyone. Alma, Juis, Arno, and Elder Keiyu remained among the bloodied survivors, and Kakyu finally found those he was looking for. Seeing Alma alive, Kakyu rushed to her and demanded an explanation of who turned the village into ruins. Activating the demon eye and soul viewing, Kakyu began searching for hidden traces of the attackers among the survivors. The peasants begged the Holy Knights to stop, assuring that there was not a single demon in Yalni. The knights pointed to the dragon meat as proof, and forced the frightened peasants to name the one who brought it. The order to kill the demon servants showed Kakyu the truth. The knights came for him, and the peasants covered him at the cost of their own lives.
A tense silence hung in the air, compressing the space.
Activating the demon eye, his anger broke through his human form, revealing his true demonic power before the enemies. Using the Soul Searcher and Devil's Eye, Saikyou instantly identified the targets and focused on revenge. The demon tore through the battlefield, and the holy knights could not comprehend where the strike came from. One by one, the attackers vanished in a black flash, unable to resist his speed. Saikyou turned the village ruins into an arena of a devastating clash, leaving the enemies no chance. The knights' counterattack fell apart as soon as the demon broke through their defense and reached the main force. Explosions covered the ground, and Saikyou continued the assault, for the pain for his loved ones drowned out any caution. His strength rapidly grew while debris, bodies, and remains of destroyed buildings fell around. After 2 years of peace, Saikyou again lost everything he considered family and allowed rage to consume him. In the demon's memory arose a hell where only wars, hunger, and death existed, without hope for mercy. Once Saikyou was deceived, betrayed, and killed, until he lost his human heart and began devouring flesh and souls. Arriving at the village, he initially planned to use the inhabitants to gather information and then destroy them all. However, the daily concerns of the villagers gradually drew him into a life he did not expect at all. Joint work, jokes, and simple meetings with people began to displace Kakyu's usual suspicion and coldness. A warm hand nearby, a sincere smile, and tasty food for the first time made his existence not a punishment but a gift. In 2 years, the village became a cozy place for Saikyou where he unexpectedly felt part of a family. But the ancient demonic nature reminded itself and demanded again to renounce human attachment. When the monster tried to tear Saikyou from this life, he could no longer see his loved ones as prey. Having fought off the darkness, Saikyou saw Alma before him and realized how much he feared losing her. Alma reached out her hand to him, and even a brief glance turned Saikyou to memories of peaceful days. He walked beside her, although inside he already knew that his true nature would inevitably destroy their happiness. Saikyou admitted that the demonic nature was an inseparable part of him, but he did not agree to let it control him. Alma sharply stopped his despair and forced him to pull himself together, not allowing the pain to finally turn him into a beast. Realizing the loss of everything dear, Saikyou bowed before Alma and asked for forgiveness for what he could not change. He called her and the future child the only family he had ever truly had. Alma responded to his despair with quiet closeness, and Saikyou for the first time allowed himself not to hide his weakness. Their embrace for a moment drowned out the fear that the demon inside Saikyou would once again break free. However, Saikyou asked Alma to listen carefully to him, because he had to tell the truth about his nature. Beside them appeared the image of an infant, whose appearance was destined to forever change the demon's fate. Alma awaited the birth of the child, and Saikyou hid his anxiety, not knowing if he could become a father to her. He fervently wished that the child resembled Alma, although he could not even be sure of its gender. Despite doubts, Alma entrusted Saikyou with the future of the infant, and this trust struck him more powerfully than any weapon. When Saikyou returned to the devastated village, among the ruins he saw Ars and rushed to him. He found the child alive, but around lay the remains of the house and traces of a tragedy that could not be undone. Saikyou swore to raise Ars as the happiest person in the world, even if it meant fighting all hell to do so. Accepting the child as his son, he bound his own soul to him and took responsibility for his future. Saikyou promised Arnaud to fulfill his unkept promise and protect the boy at any cost. Ars seemed to respond to him that he would definitely live happily, and this hope became a new support for Saikyou. Saikyou sealed the oath before the child, declaring it absolute and stronger than any demon commands. After the memory, he stayed by the graves, pondering which path the child of demon and human would take. In the demonic world, it turned out that Saikyou was the only lower demon with power close to the highest lords. The demons were surprised that he had not died over 2 years, and acknowledged his unusual endurance. One of the lords threatened to destroy all of Saikyou's familiars if he harmed another world. Saikyou despised threats because he had already destroyed everything the attackers could take from him. Other demons mocked the man once taken in by their ruler, not understanding the irony of his fate. The demonic lords acknowledged that a human child might become Saikyou's killer in the future. They were interested in which path the son of a demon and a human, who inherited the conflicting nature of both worlds, would choose. News of the event reached the palace of the demon emperor, where the ruler ordered all details to be reported. The emperor tasked his subordinates with creating a separate investigation, and forbade other lords from interfering in the matter on their own. Ars endured a new trial related to the unusual power of his body. After the magic flare, it became clear that the child was born with a special gift. It turned out that Ars inherited dragon magic, although he himself remained human. The unusual origin explained the early development of his abilities. Those close to him began to watch the boy's condition more carefully. Ars could not fully control the power when he was anxious or tired. His father decided to teach the child gradually, without forcing him into dangerous exercises. Daily lessons turned out to be more difficult than the family expected. Even simple actions sometimes caused excessive magical bursts. Gradually, Ars began to understand that power required discipline. The family tried to preserve a normal childhood for him. In the village, people were curious about the child who was different from all the others. Ars grew quickly and demanded more and more attention. His care proved exhausting even for experienced adults. The father divided household duties so as not to leave the child unattended. At the same time, he continued working on the settlement's arrangement. The villagers helped the family when Ars's magic went out of control. One time the boy scared everyone with a sudden fire burst. After this, a safe place for training was prepared for him. Ars began to practice under the supervision of adults. Magical manifestations became more frequent, but no longer so destructive. The father noticed that the child responded better to calm explanations than to punishment. The family gradually developed their own routine for caring for Ars. The boy's powers allowed him to quickly perform simple tasks. However, excessive energy often prevented him from behaving quietly. The village got used to this and began to perceive Ars as unusual, but their own resident. The father spoke about the difficulties of raising a child with such a heritage. He admitted that he still did not know what Ars would become in adulthood. Despite uncertainty, the family decided to protect the boy from others' greed. After all, knowledge about draconic magic could attract dangerous people. Ars began to show interest in the surrounding world. He explored the house, yard, and neighboring fields under his father's supervision. A usual walk turned into endurance training. The boy learned to restrain his strength when animals were nearby. This convinced the family that the training was yielding results. The first rumors about the unusual child appeared in the village. The father tried to keep outsiders away from the house. At the same time, he strengthened the settlement's defenses in case of an attack. Ars accidentally overheard conversations about dangerous lands beyond the village. The new stories awakened in him a desire to see the world someday. The father did not support hasty plans and reminded him of responsibility. The child still could not independently control his own magic. The next lessons were dedicated to breathing, balance, and precision of movements. Ars was able to use strength for the first time without destructive results. The family perceived this as an important small victory. In the evening, the father stayed beside his son and watched over his sleep. Caring for the child changed his ideas about the future. He no longer thought only about his own adventures and strength. Now the main goal was to raise Ars to be safe and kind. A new stage of the family's life began with the decision to protect the child and prepare him for adulthood. Ars continued to grow under his father's care, and his magic became more noticeable. Daily work in the village helped the boy get used to human life. The father combined caring for his son with working in the fields and the workshop. Ars demanded constant attention because he quickly tired of monotonous activities. The homeland learned to understand his needs and restrain dangerous impulses. In the first months, caring for the child left almost no time for rest. The father began keeping records of nutrition, sleep, and manifestations of magic. This way, he tried to determine patterns in Ars's development. The boy gradually learned to respond to simple commands. His strength remained great but became more predictable. Ars began helping around the household, although he often did it too zealously. Accidental damages forced the father to invent new safety rules. During training, the boy was able for the first time to change the direction of a magical strike. This success showed that control was developing along with the body. The father decided not to hide the truth about his unusual origin from him. Ars learned that his strength was connected to dragons. The news did not scare the boy because he did not yet understand the danger of such a gift. The adults agreed not to disclose the details to strangers. After a few days, travelers arrived in the village. Their appearance made the family watch Ars more carefully. One of the guests noticed the child's magical trace. The father quickly shifted the conversation to ordinary village matters. The stranger's suspicion remained unspoken but created tension. After the travelers left, the settlement strengthened the night watch. Ars felt the general anxiety and unintentionally released excess energy. The father calmed him and explained that fear did not make the boy guilty. They repeated the magic restraint exercises together. Ars managed faster than before and returned to his usual affairs. Gradually, the peasants again stopped fearing his abilities. The child began to play with peers under the supervision of adults. Other children were initially cautious but quickly got used to R's. His strength helped to pull out a heavy object that was stuck in the yard. After this, the boy felt for the first time that he could be useful. The father praised him not for strength but for caution. R's remembered that the important thing was not the size of the magic, but the way it was used. In the evening, the family discussed future education. The father decided to find a mentor for the boy when he became older. Until then, the main lessons were to be conducted by himself. R's began to study the names of things, people, and places around the settlement. Knowledge helped him better understand the world in which he lived. One morning, news came from the outskirts about an attack by beasts. The adults set out to check the fields, leaving the children in a safe place. R's sensed danger earlier than others and warned his father. The timely warning helped avoid serious losses. After this, the boy's abilities were regarded with greater trust. The father emphasized that premonition did not exempt one from the duty to verify facts. R's accepted the caution and began to observe the surroundings more carefully. Childhood in the village remained peaceful, but the dangerous world increasingly reminded itself. The family prepared supplies and reinforced the house in case of a new threat. R's continued to mature, and along with him grew the responsibility for his power. After the events in the village, the story moved to a new danger related to a dragon. The companions discovered that the creature posed a threat to the entire region. To assess danger, they began using a ranking system for monsters and adventurers. The new rules helped compare the strength of different opponents. The highest categories were reserved for creatures capable of destroying cities. R's carefully studied the evaluation table and understood the scale of the upcoming problem. The squad arrived at the port city where trade routes converged. The city lived by trade, but nearby there was a dangerous black market. Slave traders and mercenaries were often encountered on the streets. R's tried not to attract unnecessary attention to his group. The locals told about a creature hiding near the river. The forest on the other bank was considered the territory of a dragon. Because of fear of it, people hardly approached the waterfall. Saikyou arrived in the city to gather information about the local threat. Her presence immediately attracted the attention of the port residents. The search for the needed person was complicated by a foreign language and conflicting rumors. R's decided to find an assistant who knew the city and could handle a child. Because of this, he began considering the possibility of buying a servant. Such a decision contradicted his beliefs, but he saw no other options. Together with his companions, R's tried to find a person who could be trusted. At the market, they saw various slaves being sold after crimes or captivity. R's refused to take the first available candidate. He needed an educated and responsible person capable of caring for a child. Negotiations with the traders proved difficult due to high prices. R's did not want to become part of human trafficking, but had to act within local rules. The search dragged on and the dragon threat remained unresolved. Meanwhile, the squad was collecting maps of rivers and information about dangerous sections. One of the merchants reported an unusual slave with useful knowledge. R's checked his history and made sure that the man had experience working with children. After cautious negotiations, he agreed to the purchase. The new assistant joined the group and immediately began to worry about R's. At the same time, he admitted that he did not know how to behave with a magical child. R's explained the basic safety rules and distributed responsibilities. The servant quickly saw that the boy lacked ordinary parental attention. His presence allowed R's to focus on the investigation. The squad set out for the forest adjacent to the dragon's territory. On the way, they noticed traces of a large creature and recent destruction. A sudden attack forced the travelers to speed up. Saikyou protected the group with magic, but this attracted even more attention. A dragon appeared over the forest and forced the people to hide among the rocks. Its presence confirmed the worst assumptions of the local residents. R's realized that a direct fight would be pointless. The squad retreated to the waterfall, seeking a safer path. There they discovered traces of a nest and signs of recent hatching. The dragon was likely protecting its offspring, not attacking without reason. R's decided not to provoke the creature and ordered to leave the territory. The return to the city occurred without a new clash. The collected information helped to more accurately assess the dragon's rank. The group understood that the next step required allies and careful preparation. The danger remained unresolved, but R's already had an assistant and a plan for further actions. R's became fascinated with the fame of the merchant Sebas and convinced Saikyou to set out in search of the influential traveler. They reached the port city of Pamali, where they hoped to quickly find the necessary connections. In an abandoned house opposite the river, Saikyou discovered a captive elf woman chained to the debris. Urza sat among the ruins, exhausted and wary, but did not lose her dignity even in captivity. Her silent gaze reminded Saikyou of his own betrayals and how hard it is to trust people again. When it was time to set sail, Urza was informed about the ship's readiness, and Saikyou left her under supervision. On the vessel, he admitted that he could not rely on others' words, even if Sebas himself had an impeccable reputation. While Saikyou prepared for the journey, Urza stood up and ordered herself to endure despite the pain. Her companion reminded her about the ship, and the group moved through the bustling port toward the pier. Sebas greeted Saikyou with a friendly smile, but almost immediately provoked him with a careless prank. The innocent sneeze of the violinist turned into a fire, and Saikyou angrily rushed to extinguish the flames. The culprit's father apologized, but the destroyed shop quickly gathered an angry crowd around them. Saikyou tried to negotiate compensation, but the city guard had already surrounded him from all sides. Sebas recognized in him the needed traveler, but Saikyou did not have time to use his support. The old merchant called Saikyou a fraud, and he understood that excessive force would only worsen the situation. The outraged townspeople did not allow him to calmly explain the situation, forcing him to flee together with Rs. Trapped in an alley, Saikyou noticed that there were too many witnesses around for a careless teleport. Suddenly, a fiery dragon appeared over the city, and the general panic interrupted the pursuit. Flames engulfed the port and people scattered, leaving ships and cargo abandoned. Saikyou decided to take advantage of the chaos, but first had to protect Rs from falling debris. He pressed the boy to himself and saw the dragon descending directly onto the city blocks. The creature blazed so brightly that its fire engulfed houses, ships, and streets simultaneously. The fire reached the port, and the ship with people found itself in danger amid the burning water. The captain ordered to return to shore, but child slaves remained on the vessel, unable to escape in time. Urza saw the lagging children and without waiting for orders rushed back to them. She decided to save everyone, even if it meant ending up before the masters again. Her courage made Saikyou wonder if he could really just leave this place for the sake of his own secret. Saikyou hesitated between caution and rescuing strangers, while the dragon was destroying the city. The thought of Rs and the danger of the Holy Knights made him convince himself that escape would be the right decision. Despite doubts, Saikyou turned to the fire and decided to act, because he no longer wanted to pass by someone else's trouble. Urza rushed onto the deck, trying to reach the children, while the dragon unleashed a new attack on the ship. Saikyou dashed forward, using chains and rigging to break through the flames. The dragon struck the ship, and from the explosion, debris scattered over the port buildings. Saikyou shielded Rs with his own body, then saw that the next strike almost hit Urza. He instantly moved between the girl and the dragon's claws, not hiding his superhuman speed. Flames exploded nearby, but Saikyou stayed on his feet and caught the chain that restrained the prisoners. Urza grabbed her weapon and attacked the dragon, not allowing fear to paralyze her. Saikyou used a chain as support, flew over the debris, and struck the monster's wing. The dragon threw off the attacker, but Saikyou returned to the air before he could touch the ground. Urza struck the dragon's neck again, and Saikyou took advantage of the opening for a new swift maneuver. The fire monster became enraged and began circling over the city, destroying roofs and towers with wing beats. Urza barely held on to the debris but continued the fight, covering the path to the children. Saikyou pierced the dragon's scales and forced it to retreat from the burning ship. In response, the monster lunged downward, trying to throw off the attackers with a simple body strike. Saikyou caught Urza in flight, and she managed to inflict a new cut on the dragon's armor. They divided their attacks, forcing the dragon to lose altitude and crash into city buildings. Flames and debris rained down on the streets, but Saikyou did not allow the monster to reach the people. The dragon fell heavily on the roofs, and Urza saw an open opportunity before her to end the clash. Saikyou again shielded her from the blow, while the dragon raised its head and prepared for the final attack. Over the ruined city, Saikyou, Urza, and the dragon clashed in a decisive confrontation on which the lives of the captives depended. The wounded dragon proved weaker due to numerous old wounds, but its rage still threatened the entire city. Urza realized that people themselves might have maimed the dragon and then became its target. She did not believe in her own victory and decided at least to buy time for the escape of the civilians. Saikyou saw the residents fleeing to the shore and prepared to cover them from a new strike. The dragon tore itself from the ruins, forcing Saikyou to sharply change position and protect Rs. The fiery attack destroyed part of the quarter, and Saikyou barely managed to pull the boy away from the debris. Urza fell among the stones, but Saikyou pulled her from under the rubble and did not allow the flames to reach the children. Seeing her exhaustion, Saikyou ordered Urza to retreat because further fighting could kill her. But the elf refused to flee and raised her weapon again, striving to finish the fight on her own. Saikyou decided to use her magic to conceal the true scale of the upcoming attack. Urza agreed to temporarily blind everyone in the city, although she was too exhausted for a safe spell. Saikyou handed Arsa over to foreign hands and warned Urza that he now intended to personally destroy the dragon. During the magic flare, the inhabitants lost the ability to follow the battle, and Saikyou disappeared into the darkness. Urza saw his silhouette and realized that he was moving much faster than any ordinary fighter. Saikyou rushed at the dragon while the monster was trying to regain orientation after the spell. The first strike knocked the dragon back, but its scales withstood the attack and did not allow the fight to end quickly. Saikyou jumped between roofs, avoiding claws and flames, while the dragon began destroying the houses around. The blind monster roared fiercely and tried to find the attacker by sound and magical traces. Saikyou deliberately drew its attention to lure the dragon away from the people still fleeing the city. Urza supported the maneuver, restraining the monster with short strikes and not allowing it to take flight. The dragon became enraged, and its flame cut through the street, leaving a black mark on the stone. Saikyou broke through the fire and struck the damaged area of the dragon's chest. The strike forced the monster to retreat, but it immediately tried to crush Saikyou with its full weight. Saikyou jumped back and Urza attacked again, taking advantage of a brief pause in the dragon's defense. Her blade cut through the scales, but the elf felt that she had almost no strength left for more than one move. The dragon saw her weakness and lunged forward, hoping to get rid of the most dangerous opponent. Saikyou intercepted his attack and struck the jaw, throwing the monster's head over the city rooftops. Urza held on to the debris and with her last strength delivered a decisive blow to the vulnerable spot. The dragon staggered, its wings lost power, and the surrounding buildings shook from the fall. Saikyou broke through the defense and directed the final attack straight to the monster's heart. After the explosion, the dragon froze among the ruins, and the people finally realized that the danger was over. The victory surprised the townspeople, who saw that Urza was almost unscathed after the exhausting battle. Saikyou thanked her for the help, but was already thinking about how to hide the true power of his attack. Urza responded with gratitude, and Saikyou took the opportunity to make her an unexpected request. He asked Urza to become Arza's mother, because the boy needed someone capable of sincerely caring for him. The elf did not understand how Saikyou managed to go from fighting a dragon to making such a serious decision. When people appeared around again, Saikyou explained that he could not allow his son's savior to die in front of him. Urza was stunned, while Saikyou behaved as if he had made a perfectly natural proposal. The destroyed dragon and ruined quarters became proof that his power could again attract unwanted attention. Urza looked at Ars, and for the first time her gaze showed not only caution but also warmth. After a short pause, Saikyou and Ars left the city, and Urza did not have time to give a final answer to his request. She watched them for a long time, trying to understand why the unfamiliar demon so easily entrusted her with the child. A few months later, Urza was summoned to the royal castle of Lawrence for a secret conversation. She was reminded that she was a scout of the royal family and an operative with the codename Twilight. Urza received a secret mission related to the exchange of a forbidden magical instrument. A meeting between the Dark Guild and an aristocrat could threaten the security of the entire country. The authorities ordered Urza to infiltrate the meeting and kill the merchant before the exchange began. She agreed to carry out the assignment, although after the events in Pamal, her conscience no longer allowed her to blindly trust orders. The disguised intermediary explained that the mission was to protect the future of the magical state, but concealed the true motives. Urza set out for the old knight barracks, unaware that the new task would again cross her path with Saikyou. Urza learned that she had been released despite her status as a criminal, and along with this, a difficult assignment was placed on others. Among the prisoners, she remembered a person she once trusted, but now felt betrayed by. Hands bound by chains reminded Urza that her freedom still remained only someone else's decision. In a memory appeared the moment when she almost killed the ruler she revered almost like a father. An old man came to the prison, where Urza silently accepted the consequences of her crime. The travelers set out for Elvrant, hoping to sell Urza where elven origin had value. To avoid inspections, they chose the old road through Nagraja, although magical beasts could appear there. Urza tried to understand how to atone for her guilt, and increasingly desired to remain alone. Saikyou approached her, and Urza responded to him with gratitude for the first time in a long while. She emphasized that she remained a slave, so she did not consider herself deserving of anyone's salvation. Saikyou again proposed to Urza to become Ars's mother, which shocked her and brought her to tears. Their conversation revealed the difference between Saikyou's direct offer and Urza's fear of accepting a new life. Urza could not believe that after everything that had happened, someone truly wanted to tie the child's future to her. In Pamal, a port city of the Elvrant Kingdom, the travelers saw the aftermath of a recent battle. Saikyou, Urza, and Ars found themselves amid the city's bustle, where everyone was trying to understand the cause of the destruction. Urza sharply rejected the hint of marriage, because Saikyou interpreted her words completely differently than she intended. The misunderstanding between them turned the tense conversation into an awkward but almost familial scene. Sebas joined the conversation and helped shift the focus from the personal dispute to the events at the port. In the middle of the city lay the carcass of a dragon, and those present tried to figure out who had managed to defeat it. Sebas explained that a natural disaster suddenly brought the dragon to the city, and an unknown attacker destroyed it. Legal slaves were marked with a magical sign, but no one could find a way to verify it on Urza's body. Sebas noticed that the children could not be legal slaves, and this circumstance complicated the investigation. Ars asked to return home while the adults were still discussing the dragon's death and the future road. Saikyou led Urza and Ars to the Church of the Holy Land to obtain confirmation of her status. Urza asked Saikyou to allow her to remain his slave, but first she wanted to hear the verdict of the sacred institution. Saikyou introduced himself as a mid-level merchant from the Hell World, located beyond the Northern Sea. He explained that he wanted to become a father to Ars, and expected Urza to take on the role of the child's mother. Urza saw in Saikyou what she herself lacked and asked if he could treat her as an equal. Saikyou agreed to accept the slave contract if it would help Urza stay close and raise Ars. From such willingness to take on her past, Urza lost the power of speech and could not hide her confusion. Saikyou tried to convince her that he sought not to subjugate, but to help her become stronger again. Urza refused because she did not consider herself free from slavery and motherhood until she atoned for the grave crime. Saikyou accepted her position, and Urza apologized for the request she herself called unreasonable. She admitted that she demanded too much from Saikyou, while he did not reproach her for fear. Saikyou showed that he was ready to take on any role needed by Arsu so that the child would not be left alone. Sebas warned that he needed time to prepare for departure, and Saikyou decided to rest after the battle. Urza, Saikyou, and Arsu found themselves again on the streets of Pamola, preparing to leave the city. Saikyou thanked Urza for her help, but his words sounded to her almost like a farewell. During the journey, Urza was silent because she could not accept the thought that Saikyou had truly entrusted Arsu to her. Saikyou separated from them, promising to catch up later, and left Urza alone with the responsibility. With the help of the Devil's Eye, Saikyou checked from afar whether Urza remained safe. He saw in her soul suspicion, anger, repentance, and devotion to the person who once betrayed her trust. Urza's past turned out to be complicated because her character was strongly influenced by family traumas and her mother's experience. Saikyou realized that he needed not a submissive servant, but a person capable of sincerely bonding with him and Arsu. Urza thanked Saikyou for the care, although she herself could not yet fully explain her own feelings. She decided to trust his actions and asked him not to leave her without support in the future. Urza recalled that Saikyou entrusted her with his son, and it was this trust that made her respond in kind. In the conversation, it became clear that even the closest people can hide betrayal behind a mask of loyalty. Saikyou and Urza discussed how easily people betray each other when fear prevails over trust. Urza admitted that Saikyou saved many lives, although she understood that a trail of crimes also followed him. Urza explained to Saikyou that his presence and trust meant much more to her than he himself realized. She asked for strength not only for herself but also for Ars, because she no longer wanted to be helpless before someone else's will. Saikyou reminded her that even after mistakes, a person must continue to do what is right. Urza tried to object, but her own past again made her doubt her right to redemption. Saikyou asked what exactly she considered atonement if constant punishment does not change the consequences of the crime. The discussion of slave contracts showed that different types of punishment only differently reinforce the guilt of a person. Urza doubted whether Saikyou was truly capable of understanding her desire to atone for the crime. She stated that she would rather choose severe punishment than allow others to convince her of innocence. Loneliness and Saikyou's strength seemed so distant from Urza's pain that she did not believe in the possibility of mutual understanding. Saikyou did not retreat because he saw in her despair not weakness, but responsibility for those she had wronged. He admitted that he could not care for Ars as well as Urza, and he did not even know how to look after a child. Urza recalled that due to her own inattentiveness she had already lost sight of the child, and that guilt still hurt. Saikyou proved that for both of them it was not enough just to survive if they could not support each other. Urza asked for help raising Ars because she wanted to turn maternal responsibility into a path of atonement. Saikyou agreed to take this path together with her, even if their future remained uncertain. Urza asked what exactly she should do to deserve the right to call her actions atonement. During the conversation, it became clear that her idea of justice was shaped under the influence of others' orders and harsh rules. Kakyo explained that children need parents capable of creating a safe future for them, not just punishing themselves for the past. Urza understood that her title and past did not exempt her from the duty to be responsible for the future of those who depended on her. She decided to direct her strength towards the children so that their lives would not repeat the tragedies of the previous generation. Urza called justice not revenge, but the opportunity to correct the consequences of one's own mistakes with useful deeds. Her new goal became a future in which children could laugh without knowing fear and slavery. Kakyu supported this decision because he saw in it not an escape from guilt, but a concrete direction for atonement. They agreed to start anew and build a family so that ours would grow up surrounded by care and joy. Urza accepted the outstretched hand of Kakyu, thereby agreeing to bear responsibility together with him. Kakyu calmed her when fear returned again and showed that he did not intend to leave her alone. He promised never to betray Urza, although she still could not completely rid herself of distrust. Urza decided to prove by her actions that she was capable of justifying the trust given and protecting ours. A new part of the journey began on the ship, and the travelers left Pamola behind. The captain ordered to keep the course, not allowing the passengers to mindlessly pursue the woman who had disappeared from sight. Part of the team considered Urza a dangerous anomaly, not an ordinary slave, because she crossed the border independently. The old president ordered to release them, but the team reminded that it had its own principle to protect even the lowest slaves. He demanded to treat Urza with respect, because behind her fate stood the will of an influential person. Meanwhile, the dragon moved deeper into the country, forcing the inhabitants to prepare for a new attack. The city's defenders united to save the children who found themselves in the danger zone. After a thunder-like strike, dragon fragments appeared over the city, and frightened people did not understand the reason for the monster's death. Witnesses tried to reconstruct the sequence of events, assuming that a natural disaster concealed the real attack. One of the merchants tried to take advantage of the situation, because dragon scales could bring huge profit. Suddenly, a mighty beast appeared, and its arrival stopped disputes among people. Armed warriors prepared for a clash, but the newcomer called himself the ruler of the lion people. Viradra, the Lion King, openly declared his power and the right to command in this territory. He announced the city as his possession and promised to turn it into a place where inhabitants could live and work. People did not have time to recover from the appearance of the new ruler, because events changed too quickly. Kakyu used teleportation magic, which frightened those who saw such movement for the first time. The attempt to explain magic turned into a funny argument, because the interlocutors were talking about completely different things. After the transition, the travelers saw a familiar landscape and perceived it as a long-awaited return home. At the same time, they did not understand why they were in the sky and began to prepare for a dangerous fall. A few hours before this, in an abandoned house, Pamola Kakyu checked whether Urza would betray him. Urza assured that she did not intend to leave him, but could not convincingly explain all her actions. Kakyu realized that their relationship was still far from simple, but their shared path had already become irreversible. Kakyu proposed to conclude a slave contract so that the new bond with Urza would have legal force. Urza agreed to the ritual, although she realized that the contract would forever change their relationship. Sebas explained that the magical seal secures the relationship between master and slave and can limit freedom. Kakyu declared without hesitation that he was ready to become a slave himself, if it would allow them to share responsibility equally. Urza and Kakyu decided to become slaves to each other, turning an uneven contract into a mutual promise. She saw in the contract a chance to no longer betray each other even under the pressure of past fears. Sebas compared their agreement to a marriage, which only intensified the awkwardness between Kakyu and Urza. Magical seals secured the terms of the contract, and both felt the agreement finally took effect. After concluding the contract, Kakyu and Urza had to get used to a new form of trust and shared responsibilities. They arrived at the old fortress in the great forest of Valkyrie, which Kakyu decided to use as a hidden base. Among the thickets, the travelers found a camouflaged house capable of hiding them from pursuers. Inside, there was a lot of mess, supplies, and items left by previous inhabitants. Urza began cleaning the premises, trying to prove she could be useful in the new family. In the storage, Kakyu found books and items related to dangerous black magic. Ars was surprised to see Kakyu among the strange things and began to reassess his guardian. Urza noticed that Kakyu was hiding extraordinary power, but did not rush to ask about its origin. The arrangement of the base showed that hidden life would require constant work from everyone. Kakyu demonstrated magic that could not be explained by ordinary human rules. Observers assumed that he could be a legendary hero or a high-ranking demon. Saikyou himself again emphasized that he remained a merchant from the northern lands, not a mythical savior. After reviewing the contract terms, Saikyou finally agreed to allow Urza to raise ours. He entrusted her with caring for the field, livestock, and household, so that the family could survive independently of the city. Urza saw the land around the base that would have to be turned into a real home. Her anxiety increased when she wondered if she could fulfill the role of a mother. A new chapter began with Urza's question about whether she was truly fit to raise a child. She imagined herself as a mother but immediately recalled her own mistakes and felt uncertainty. Saikyou watched her from the side, not wanting to force Urza into a role she feared. In memory, Saikyou's childhood appeared when he trained together with his biological brother. In his village, men and women equally became warriors, preparing to defend the community. Saikyou remembered a small world where he had no mother, and the family was formed by the father and brothers. The image of the mother in his past remained an empty place that he could not explain. Urza saw how Saikyou was tired after training and began to worry about him. She woke Saikyou when he fell asleep, and he was surprised by her unexpected care. It turned out that Saikyou had slept for more than 2 days after exhaustion, so Urza did not leave his side. Upon waking, Saikyou tried to behave normally, although his body had not yet recovered. Returning to work quickly revealed that the house was again in disorder. Ars tried to stop the adults when their argument began to turn into a commotion. A new hole appeared in the wall, and the base residents realized that magic was again out of control. Saikyou and Urza began to call themselves family, although each was afraid of this responsibility in their own way. During Saikyou's illness, Urza cared for him and for the first time felt needed not as a slave, but as a close person. She prepared breakfast for him, and Saikyou called her behavior almost wifely. Urza took up cleaning again because she wanted to make the base suitable for Ars's life. Saikyou created a small magical doll that could transmit messages over a distance. The new thing allowed the doll owners to communicate even when they were far from each other. Urza prepared food, trying to combine housework with caring for the child. After exhausting training, Saikyou was injured, which made Urza remember his vulnerability again. She cared for him as she once wanted someone to care for her. Saikyou's injury reminded him of his mother, whom he barely remembered but still searched for in memories. Urza felt that her own experience helped her better understand the needs of Ars and Saikyou. At the end of the day, she for the first time assumed that she could truly become a mother to Ars. The morning in the new home began with ordinary household chores, in which Urza gradually found her place. Her gaze changed because caring for Ars no longer seemed just an imposed duty. After another training session, Saikyou bandaged his hand, and Urza carefully watched to make sure he did not worsen the condition. Beyond the walls of the base stretched a village where the family could obtain supplies and start trading. Urza greeted Saikyou in the morning almost like at home, and this surprised both of them. Cleaning again revealed the mess that Saikyou and Ars left after their activities. Urza cleaned the rooms while Ars watched her and tried to help. A new damaged wall showed that magical incidents in the house had not stopped. Saikyou felt that something serious was happening with Ars, but did not immediately understand the reason. The family decided to live together and start a simple family life in the hidden base. The young master asked about magical paper necessary for records and managing affairs. A new chapter began with a high fever that suddenly struck the base's inhabitants. The explanation about the races of another world showed that humans were only one of many peoples. Possible inhabitants of the world included demons, angels, elves, beastmen, and other intelligent beings. How Saikyou and Urza tried to rest, although illness and household duties did not allow them to relax. Saikyou's morning awakening turned into a fuss because he did not want to stay in bed. Urza took on the care of the sick, and Ars began to see her as the main support. After recovering, Saikyou explained that he could now control only 2 small magical dolls at the same time. Urza was worried that his condition had not yet recovered, but Saikyou returned to work. She went to get goat milk, necessary for feeding Ars and household supplies. The goat caused a commotion, unwilling to calmly submit to the new mistress. Ars tried to help with the milk, but his involvement only added trouble. Urza noticed that Ars was becoming increasingly attached to her, which both pleased and frightened her. The attempt to cook ended unsuccessfully because Urza was not yet accustomed to local products and recipes. Despite the failure, she served breakfast and decided not to retreat from household duties. Ars praised the dish, sincerely encouraging Urza. Saikyou tried to explain that the taste of the food depended on the spices, but his remark only intensified the comic tension. Urza gradually learned to cook, and Saikyou admitted that she was truly trying for the sake of the family. They held a family meeting to distribute duties and discuss future matters. Saikyou noticed that Urza's behavior had changed because she began to talk about living together without fear. During the training, it turned out that the young master used magic only in a limited form. Saikyou tried to explain the rules of magic to Ars, but the child took the lessons too literally. It was suggested that the source of Ars's magical outbursts could be Urza herself. Another magic explosion confirmed that the emotions of the child and Urza strongly influenced each other. Even Ars's limited abilities became dangerous when he lost control over his feelings. Saikyou tried to calm the child, but began to doubt his own ability to be a father. Urza explained that the problems arose due to accumulated fears, not because of Ars's evil nature. They decided to work on controlling magic together and not punish the child for unintentional outbursts. Saikyou realized that the role of a father means not only protection, but also a constant readiness to learn. Help was needed again in the house because Ars was exhausted after another magical incident. Saikyou asked himself if he was doing enough for the family when he could not immediately solve all the problems. Urza heard Saikyou's doubts and assured him that her own mistakes did not make him an unfit father. She admitted that Saikyou understood Ars's needs better than she did, even if he did not notice it himself. Urza openly confessed that she had grown very fond of the child and no longer saw him as a stranger. Ars's strong reaction to her words caused a new outburst of emotions and magic. Saikyou tried to contain the consequences, but the house was once again filled with noise and disorder. Several days passed during which the family learned to live after the dangerous incidents. Saikyou asked if he was really needed by this family because he felt unnecessary between Urza and Ars. Urza reminded him that the shared home is held together by everyone's contribution, even if the work is not always visible. After the rain, the field was destroyed, and the family faced their first serious agricultural loss. Saikyou realized that Ars had become attached to Urza more than to him, and this caused jealousy within him. His attempts to understand the reason for the attachment only intensified the internal tension. Urza ran after Saikyou when he walked away after another argument. She reminded him that the very contract that bound them also required mutual support. Saikyou stated that he had to find a job so that the family would not depend on random supplies. He decided to apply for a business partnership and use trade connections. Saikyou promised to gather the necessary information before making new deals. The meeting with the merchant Ryouchi gave Saikyou the first information about trade and city rules. The merchant explained that roads were often blocked due to floods and dangerous beasts. To get to another city, sometimes it was necessary to rent a boat and take risks in the forest. Traders said that during the rainy season roads became almost unsuitable for transportation. Saikyou decided to seek allies among merchants who knew the local routes and exchange conditions. He was shown a certificate and a list of goods necessary for future trade. The meeting participants recalled the merchant Shuren, who could help with delivery. Saikyou learned that the caravan had already set off for the city, so the time for preparation was limited. He gathered information about the market and decided to establish new contacts. Witnesses said that hunters hunted animals only during the rainy season, when they became dangerous. One of the merchants called some of their claims lies, but still admitted that the risks remained. Saikyou explained that traders sometimes hid the truth so as not to lose a profitable deal. The market was preparing for the fair, where new partners and goods were to be presented. The merchants agreed to meet the next day when they would prepare documents and terms of cooperation. Saikyou informed Urs that he would borrow money and try to become the best slave for his family. She did not accept such wording because she did not want him to humiliate himself for the sake of the contract. Saikyou explained that he acted not out of coercion, but because he wanted to provide for Urs and Ars. Urza reminded that they had already concluded a mutual agreement and should not hide difficulties from each other. Communication through the magical doll allowed Saikyou to send messages, although the device worked unstably. He tried to lift the doll, but it fell, unable to withstand the required magical power. After the unsuccessful call, Saikyou got angry because he could not establish contact at the needed moment. Urza reminded him that haste only worsened control over magical instruments. At the fair, Saikyou met the merchant Silga, who offered to discuss the supply of goods. Silga told about trade guilds and the rules for working with hired carriers. Saikyou refused to hide his own weaknesses and asked for an honest evaluation of his proposal. The conversation was interrupted due to a malfunction of the magical connection, and Saikyou could not lift the doll. Urza became worried because she realized that Saikyou was alone among unfamiliar merchants. He returned home exhausted but continued preparing documents for a new case. Saikyou tried to prove that he could be a reliable father and provider for the family. Urza supported him, although she noticed that he was hiding fatigue and pain. Ars began to fall ill, and Kakyu immediately left the trade to return to the child. The fever rose suddenly, so Urza called Kakyu, not knowing how to help. Kakyu used magic to check Ars's condition, but could not immediately determine the cause. Urza admitted that she had never seen such an illness before, and was afraid of losing the child. Kakyu tried to calm her, although his own fear was increasingly difficult to hide. He explained that Ars might be reacting to an excess of magic and emotional tension. Urza did not leave the bed, monitoring the child's breathing and temperature. Kakyu prepared medicine and used magical means to reduce the fever. Ars began to delirium, and his magic manifested again in the form of a dangerous flare-up. Urza hugged the child and tried to convey calmness, not allowing fear to control her. Kakyu admitted that he could not solve everything alone and asked Urza to act together with him. Joint efforts gradually stabilized Ars's condition, although the cause of the illness remained unclear. The family understood that the domestic difficulties were only the beginning of trials that would require their complete unity. Kakyo admitted that he tried to compensate for his own failures with magic, but because of this neglected Ars. He explained that he made a contract with Urza precisely because he could not handle all the responsibilities himself. When Ars was left unsupervised, his emotions quickly got out of control. Urza calmed the child by her very presence, and Kakyo admitted that this was the best solution for Ars. Kakyo added that he needed Urza no less than Ars did, because being near her made him feel calmer himself. Urza accepted his gratitude and stopped perceiving her own care as a temporary punishment. To restrain magical outbursts, Kakyo decided to use a devil's cane capable of absorbing excess power. He asked not to suppress the magic completely, but to direct it into a safe object. During breakfast, Urza prepared a strange dish, and no one could immediately determine what exactly was in it. The family decided to allow Kakyo to cook, but his culinary attempt only increased the overall confusion. Kakyo again asked Urza if she was ready to become a slave for the sake of a shared future. Urza explained that without a legal reason and sufficient funds, such a status could be recognized as illegal. To avoid problems, they decided to formalize a new agreement in a different way. Kakyo borrowed money and suggested considering himself the best slave, while Urza had no personal funds. The magic bag helped to store things and materials necessary for the work of the whole family. Kakyo shared useful items, trying to provide for everyone so that no one felt unnecessary. He prepared a way to send Urza an important message, because he did not want to rely only on words. Kakyo confirmed that he trusted Urza, and this trust became more important to her than any promises. Urza was about to talk about a person who caused her anxiety and doubts. Kakyo used teleportation to quickly change location and avoid a dangerous situation. He explained that teleportation without markers only allowed approximately determining the required area. Because of this, travelers often appeared in dangerous places or simply in midair. Urza asked Kakyo to set a marker so that the next transitions would not end in a fall. She admitted that she felt responsible when she could not protect the children or cause someone pain. Kakyo accepted her feelings, but reminded her that responsibility should not turn into self-destruction. He suggested talking about their family and future duties without hiding grievances. Urza asked how to protect the children if the adults themselves did not have a clear plan. Kakyo pondered over who he had become to Ars and Urza after signing the contract. Urza saw that Kakyo was already behaving like a caring father, although he himself did not admit it. She hinted that his role in the family could be much more important than the role of a breadwinner. The family discussed the future at the table, trying to turn accidental cohabitation into a stable home. Kakyo assured that he was already fulfilling his duties, even if his efforts often went unnoticed. Urza thought that her past could disappoint Ars if he learned about all her mistakes. Kakyo reminded that he himself was a demon, not a human or an angel, so their differences did not hinder the family. Urza asked why Kakyu considered himself unfit for close relationships. He decided to set an example, although he did not want to reopen old wounds. The tense conversation was interrupted by Urza's sharp reaction, which did not allow Kakyu to humiliate himself. She admitted that she did not know everything about his past, but did not see him as a hopeless person. Kakyu realized that the source of Ars's magical outbursts could be the child's emotional dependence on Urza. Urza tried to object, but noticed how often Ars reacted to her mood. Kakyu was confused when the conversation about his appearance and strength again turned to family problems. He called himself useless because he could not protect his loved ones from the consequences of his own decisions. Urza reminded him that Kakyu did everything possible, even when the result did not meet his expectations. He admitted that he could not fix every problem, and this confession finally sounded sincere. Urza apologized for her sharpness, and Kakyu accepted her words without reproach. For the field, they found a magical tree that grew quickly, absorbing the surrounding power. The plant grew too much and turned the plot into a dense, overgrown space. Kakyo asked how to control such power if even one plant could take over the entire field. Urza explained that demonic magic was more powerful than ordinary magic, but required precise control. The family decided to use the power of the field for farming, not allowing the magic to turn it into a threat again. Ars was upset when he heard that fights were bad, although he himself tried to imitate adults. Urza and Kakyo were touched by his straightforwardness and understood that the child still could not distinguish play from danger. Kakyo apologized to Ars and explained that power was needed not for quarrels but for protection. The family continued to care for the house and the field, trying to return to a peaceful life. Ars set out to catch beetles because he wanted to find food and at the same time explore the surrounding forest. Urza showed him an encyclopedia of creatures, but Ars was more interested in the living beings nearby. The child caught several insects and proved that he could be attentive if he acted without haste. Kakyo praised Ars when he returned safe, although the catch itself had to be released. Urza noticed that Kakyo wanted to see all of Ars's small successes, even while being far away. During the walk, they encountered a bat that scared the child with its sudden movement. Kakyo intervened to calm Ars, and Urza tried to explain that not every strange creature is dangerous. Ars repeated the name of the bat in his own way, turning the fright into a funny family scene. Returning to the base, they noticed tracks of a large creature among the grass. In the thickets lay a young dragon trying to hide and not attract people's attention. Urza was frightened, but Kakyo determined that the dragon did not yet pose a direct threat. Ars wanted to get closer, and the adults had to restrain his curiosity. The dragon spread its wings when it sensed danger, making everyone prepare to flee. Kakyo did not attack, but tried to lead the creature away from the home and fields. The next day, the family discussed the encounter, trying to understand if the dragon would return. Ars slept longer than usual, and Urza was surprised by his unusual fatigue. Kakyu learned about the great auction in the city and decided to visit it as early as possible. He took with him a rare item related to the past of Urza and her former allies. Preparation for the auction forced Kakyu to check every item that could be profitably sold. Urza helped him arrange the goods, but was worried that someone might recognize them during the auction. She asked Kakyu not to leave her alone among unfamiliar merchants and guards. The merchant Silga arrived in the city and offered Kakyu a place among the auction participants. The merchants discussed prices, demand, and the risk of selling goods during a period of instability. The auction hall filled with people competing for rare items and magical materials. Kakyu noticed that the trades were not taking place in Pamal, but were part of another city market. He explained to Urza how price control worked and why sellers concealed the true value of the goods. During negotiations, someone unexpectedly mentioned a visitor who might know about their base. Kakyu heard that the arriving merchant came from a distant land and brought unusual goods. One of the lots quickly rose to the price of 200,000, causing the hall to buzz. Urza watched the auction, trying to understand how Kakyu remained calm in such a struggle. After the auction segment ended, Kakyu felt that his participation did not bring the expected result. He decided to teach Ars caution, but his lesson turned out to be too harsh. Urza stopped Kakyu because she did not want fear of making a mistake to turn into discipline by punishment. The family returned to the conversation about each person's responsibility for the common home. Kakyu realized that over the past year he had become too attached to Urza. He explained that the demonic body was a vessel for a large amount of magical energy. The diagrams showed how the power passed through the demon's body and changed its capabilities. Urza learned that demons could accumulate magic faster, but risked losing control because of it. Kakyu noticed her complex feelings and understood that they were connected not only with past guilt. He began thinking about a gift for Urza that could confirm the seriousness of their relationship. Returning home, the family once again took up everyday tasks and caring for Ars. Kakyu fixed the glove linked to teleportation to use magic more safely. He showed that he had built a new mechanism into it and would no longer rely on a random direction. Kakyu advised Urza to learn from previous experience and not be ashamed of every failed attempt. The conversation ended in an argument because Urza did not want to reveal how badly she had damaged the magical item. Kakyu realized that even small objects became symbols of trust, fear, and shared past for them. Kakyu and Urza continued their journey after the argument, but the tension between them did not disappear. Kakyu looked exhausted, and Urza noticed that he was hiding the consequences of another magical overload. She tried to talk to him, but Saikyou did not want to admit how deeply the previous words had affected him. Urza asked to be left alone for a while to sort out her own feelings. Magical traces began to appear around the base again, indicating instability of the local power. Ars stayed in the house, while the adults tried to understand the cause of the new disturbances. Saikyou gathered bottles and records, but could not find an explanation for the sudden changes. He checked the magical glove, hoping to use it to stabilize teleportation. Urza asked what exactly Saikyou wanted to say, but he did not dare to reveal the truth. His silence again brought Saikyou back to memories of Alma and unfulfilled promises. Urza watched him from afar, understanding that not all wounds can be healed by direct questions. She inquired whether Saikyou had seen Ars, because the child disappeared from the yard without explanation. The tracks led to the forest, where magic left damage on the trees and the ground. Saikyou found Ars near a dangerous area and was injured protecting him. Urza refused to run away, although Saikyou ordered her not to approach the source of the magic. A young dragon appeared among the thickets, but its behavior did not resemble a usual attack. Saikyou ordered everyone to step back until he figured out why the creature was reacting to Ars's magic. Urza saw Ars's tears and understood that the child was afraid not of the dragon, but of losing the adults. Saikyou reproached himself for being too occupied with his own problems lately. Urza asked if Saikyou could allow her to stay by his side further. He admitted that he himself caused part of her fears by constantly making her prove her loyalty. Urza replied that she could not tell everything at once because she was afraid of losing trust again. Saikyou apologized for not noticing her doubts and leaving her alone with the past. Urza recalled people who once treated her as a person, not as a weapon or a slave. She said that now she believed Saikyou because his actions gradually proved the sincerity of his intentions. Urza acknowledged that the world around her had changed, even if part of this good might have turned out to be an illusion. She regretted not noticing earlier the possibility of living differently, because she was focused only on punishment. Saikyou led Urza to a forest clearing and knelt before her on one knee. He showed a ring and asked Urza to tie her future with him not through a contract, but of her own free will. Saikyou emphasized that his proposal was not another legal agreement between master and slave. He proposed marriage to Urza, wishing to make her a true partner and mother to Ars. Urza accepted the proposal, although she could not immediately find the words due to nervousness. Her embarrassment turned into tears when she realized that Saikyou had chosen her voluntarily. Urza agreed to become his wife and no longer see herself only as a temporary guardian. She asked if Ars was really Saikyou's son because she wanted to understand their family connection. The family ate together after the engagement, trying to imagine a future without constant fear. Urza openly thought of herself as a mother for the first time, not just a woman caring for a child. Saikyou confirmed that he wanted to see Urza by his side regardless of Ars's origin. They decided to hold the wedding in the forest where Saikyou had proposed. Preparing for the ceremony made everyone remember how a chance agreement turned into a real family. Saikyou explained that Ars was the son of his late friend and needed a family after losing his father. Urza accepted this truth and became even more attached to the child. The solemn section began with preparations for the wedding among trees and magical lights. Friends decorated the clearing, gathering flowers and creating a place for the ceremony. The young dragon stayed nearby and began behaving like Ars's friendly companion. Ars named the dragon Boru and decided that he should become his first true friend. The child tried to use healing magic to help the new comrade. Urza saw that her own magic had passed to Ars as the ability to support others. Saikyou pondered how to grant the family a higher status to safely raise the child. Urza acknowledged that the path to a peaceful life would be difficult, but now they were walking it together. Saikyou decided to obtain a higher status because a small merchant could not reliably protect the family. He explained that raising Ars required money, legal standing, and access to influential people. Saikyou thought about a power capable of destroying those who could threaten his family. Urza became worried because she heard not only concern, but also dangerous rage in his words. In the city, people began talking about the first prince and the rivalry between supporters of different heirs. Saikyou decided to use the political situation, not allowing enemies to be the first to determine the fate of his family. He learned that the first prince had the right to the throne, but conspiracies were already accumulating around him. Other members of the nobility supported alternative heirs and tried to weaken the first prince's positions. Saikyou promised Urza to obtain a title that would allow the family to live openly among people. He decided to fulfill the promise, even if it meant intervening in the struggle at court. Ars heard stories about heroes and decided that Saikyou should become the strongest defender. A sudden dragon attack interrupted the festive preparations and forced the adults to switch to defense. Ars used magic, trying to help in the fight against the monster. Saikyou and Urza covered the child while the dragon destroyed part of the forest clearing. After the victory, Ars began calling himself a hero, although he did not yet understand the true danger of the battle. The dragon Boru stayed nearby, supporting Ars and not allowing him to recklessly approach the enemies. Ars focused on the image of the hero and wanted to prove that he could independently protect his friends. Urza reminded him that true strength begins with caring for those who are weaker. She showed the child records of the past heroes' exploits so that he could better understand their responsibility. Ars learned that one of the heroes married his bride after the journey ended. He heard that the hero returned to his native village and started an ordinary life. Ars asked Urza if there would be a wedding between him and Saikyou because he wanted to repeat the hero's story. The family decided to hold a small ceremony, even if the formal marriage was already linked to a contract. Urza tried to explain to the child that a wedding required preparation and the consent of both adults. Ars enthusiastically prepared decorations, not allowing the adults to postpone the celebration. Saikyou realized that the child perceived him and Urza as real parents. The couple began discussing the future, in which Ars was to grow up among friends and safety. During the preparations, they met animals that lived near the forest base. Ars inquired whether he would be allowed to keep all the creatures for himself, but Urza reminded him of the responsibility. Saikyou explained that caring for beings does not mean the right to take them from their natural environment. Ars returned again to the topic of the wedding because he wanted to see Urza and Saikyou married. Urza was touched upon hearing how important their shared family was to the child. Ars informed the dragon Boru about the upcoming ceremony, and he responded with his own funny sound. Saikyou tried to calm everyone, although he himself was not ready for the scale of the children's plans. Boru began helping with preparations, using his strength and wings to carry decorations. Urza noticed that Ars wanted the wedding specifically for her, not just for fun. Saikyou explained that the ceremony was meant to be a gift to Ars's mother. Urza was surprised when Ars called her mother without doubt or fear. She could not answer immediately because the word reminded her of the long road to a new life. Saikyou asked not to rush, but Urza realized she no longer wanted to postpone happiness. He reminded that a formal contract already existed, but the true marriage had a different meaning. Urza objected that she did not speak of refusal, and Saikyou misunderstood her again. Their dispute turned into laughter, because both already knew they did not want to separate. For the ceremony, they created a heart of flowers and decorated the forest glade with it. Boru helped make a wooden arch and stone seats for the guests. Ars and Boru together prepared part of the decorations, proud of their work. Saikyou put in extra effort because he wanted Urza to remember this day as happy. The forest gradually turned into the place of the ceremony, where natural beauty combined with magic. Urza asked if Saikyou was really ready to call her his wife in front of everyone. Saikyou confirmed that their marriage was voluntary, and the ceremony finally began. The wedding ceremony began in the forest, and Saikyou and Urza prepared to declare mutual vows. Urza almost forgot about her nervousness when she saw the festive attire prepared for her. Magic adorned her dress with light and flowers, turning a simple ceremony into a fairy tale celebration. Saikyou asked how Urza evaluated his own outfit and tried to hide his nervousness. Urza confessed that she was truly happy because she was receiving the future by her own will for the first time. Ars and Boru brought flowers, and the guests began to take their places near the decorated arch. Saikyou promised to look into the future together with Urza, not allowing the past to divide them. Urza accepted the wedding bouquet and realized that she now belonged not to a contract, but to her own choice. She addressed Saikyou with new warmth, and he responded to her just as sincerely. The couple proclaimed vows that spoke of mutual support, Ars, and a shared home. Saikyou and Urza concluded the ritual with a kiss, and Ars joyfully accepted them as parents. Among those present, someone watched the ceremony with suspicion, not trusting Saikyou's power. Suddenly, fire appeared on the horizon, and the celebration was interrupted by news of an attack. The warriors reported an enemy moving toward the river and threatening nearby settlements. The defenders raised their shields and began to repel the fiery strikes falling on the shore. The flow of water mixed with the flames, but the dragon's attack only intensified. Scouts saw several magical beasts joining the assault on the people. The commander ordered to inform the capital about the danger and prepare for retreat. The warriors realized that the enemy's forces exceeded the capabilities of the vanguard. The fire dragon broke through the defense, and its presence turned the attack into a large-scale threat. Another unit was destroyed, forcing the commanders to acknowledge the seriousness of the situation. Witnesses reported that the enemy acted in an organized manner, not like a mindless monster. Virendra declared victory and ordered recognition of his right to command the army. The Lion King announced his intention to create his own kingdom on the captured territory. His subordinates glorified the victory, although some warriors already doubted the cost of such a triumph. After the battle, they found a solitary creature that might know the true reason for the attack. Amid the ruins appeared a fiery dragon, who called Arsa his friend. His flames once again engulfed the outskirts, forcing Saikyou and Urza to protect the child. Almost a year had passed since the wedding, and the couple decided to go to Seba's. Urza wanted to cancel the slave contract, because now their marriage was to be based solely on free choice. The road led to Urza's former home, where painful memories awaited her. They got into a carriage and left the forest base, handing over part of the affairs to their assistants. The travelers arrived at the magical kingdom of Lawrence, one of the most influential centers of the region. To avoid attracting attention, Urza changed her appearance and concealed her origin. Lawrence turned out to be one of the oldest kingdoms, with a 5,000-year history. Huge statues of founders and magical gods stood in the city squares. Urza noticed that the local church differed from temples in other countries by its strict rules. In Lawrence, the beliefs of different peoples coexisted, although each community adhered to its own rituals. The church was headed by the Pope, who received divine messages and influenced state decisions. Saikyou learned that pilgrims came here to receive blessings and protection. Representatives of the church greeted Saikyou, although Urza remained in the shadows due to her disguise. Sebas reported that preparations for the meeting were complete, and they could proceed to business. Saikyou learned that Ars stayed at home, and therefore could not immediately intervene in the events. To protect the child, he established a special barrier that did not allow dangerous magic to penetrate inside. Sebas explained that canceling the contract was a complicated procedure and could take almost 2 days. Saikyou worried about Ars, but decided to finish the matter before returning home. Urza looked at the city and realized that her past was approaching again. She asked Saikyou not to let others' rules determine who she would become after the contract was cancelled. Saikyou promised to stay close until Urza herself made the final choice. The couple entered the sacred institution, where their mutual agreement was to undergo the final verification. Ars had already grown up and demanded more freedom, but Boru did not want to let him out of the safe base. The child asked to go outside, but the dragon reminded that dangerous enemies could be hiding around. Ars and Boru arranged a staring contest, trying to find out who was stronger. Their argument turned into a game in which the dragon deliberately yielded to the child. Another year passed and Boru grew significantly, making it harder to keep him in the house. Ars complained that Boru was no longer a cheerful companion because he constantly thought about danger. To entertain himself, Ars began playing with wooden blocks and building his own fortress. Boru showed part of the dragon's wisdom, explaining that strong magic requires discipline. Saikyou noticed that the dragon was growing faster than the records predicted, and this could attract the attention of enemies. After a year of living together, Ars and Boru became inseparable, although their friendship increasingly provoked risk. Urza tried to convince Ars to behave more cautiously, but the child considered himself mature enough. Boru began training, preparing to protect Ars in case of a new attack. Saikyou tied part of the equipment to the dragon to control its movements during flight. During work in the field, a landslide occurred and the magical stream tore the ground. The dragon sensed danger earlier than the people, but did not manage to fully divert Ars from the strike. A fire flash engulfed the thickets, forcing Saikyou to cover the children with a magical barrier. Boru tried to respond with flame, but his attack only increased the destruction. The fire spread to the buildings, and the settlement's inhabitants began to panic. The warriors ordered to restrain the dragon, while civilians left the danger zone. Saikyou established a barrier that protected the children, but could not withstand the fire's force for long. Magical beasts arrived at the settlement, taking advantage of the chaos and began attacking people. One of the commanders reproached Ars for carelessness, not understanding that the child did not control the events. The warriors tried to capture Boru alive because they wanted to use the dragon for their own purposes. Witnesses stated that Ars had an exceptionally strong mage and a dragon as a domestic companion. The defenders set up an additional fence to separate the children, the dragon, and the attackers. Ars ordered Boru to run away, but the dragon did not want to leave his friend alone. The warriors pulled Boru away from Ars, and the child felt true horror of loss for the first time. Ars grabbed the dragon, begging him not to disappear, but the forces proved unequal. The protective barrier cracked under the pressure of the attacks, and the magic began to go out of control. Kakyo tried to hold the dome, and Urza searched for a way to Rs through the debris. After the battle, the victors were led to the Forest of Ancient Elves, where the trial was to take place. The warriors received a reward for capturing the dragon, despite the fact that his friend was left alone. The Lion King ordered a celebration of the victory, turning the rescue into a political spectacle. At the table, the warriors drank to the victory, while the captive Boru remained under guard. Some of the guards began discussing how to use the dragon's power for future conquests. Boru was locked in a cage, and he could not reach Rs or report on his condition. During the interrogation, it became clear that Boru had an ancient family trait connected with legendary dragons. He tried to convince the guards that he did not want to fight, but no one wanted to listen to the prisoner. One of the girls recognized Boru and understood that he was a friend of Rs, not a wild beast. She asked his name and spoke to him for the first time as a living, intelligent being. Boru called Rs his best friend, emphasizing that he did not intend to harm him. The girl learned that Rs had probably already set out to rescue the dragon. She did not know where Kakyu was, but decided not to leave Boru alone. The captive dragon admitted that he did not want his friend to risk his life for the rescue. The girl declared that she would not allow such a good boy to be killed for the sake of others' ambitions. Her words attracted the attention of other prisoners, who also began to doubt the actions of the guards. While the guards prepared for a new interrogation, the allies began looking for a way to open the cage. Rs sensed Boru's danger and released a strong magical flash that destroyed part of the fortifications. The dragon responded with a roar, and its power began to break through the barrier. A huge explosion tore through the camp, opening a path for escape, but at the same time putting everyone present at risk. After the explosion, panic engulfed the camp, and Boru saw Rs among the debris and flames. The dragon called for his friend, but warriors and broken barriers remained between them. Rs broke through the crowd trying to free Boru, although he himself was barely standing. The guards again tried to seize the child, considering him the main source of dangerous magic. Boru distracted the attackers by pretending to have lost his strength, allowing Rs to get closer. The commander ordered to capture the dragon alive to use his abilities in military experiments. A magical strike knocked back several warriors and temporarily opened the way to the cage. Rs reached Boru and ordered him to return home, but the dragon did not want to leave the other prisoners. In the chaos, they found an egg that was kept among the trophies and might be connected to the dragon's origin. The guards did not know to whom the egg belonged because they had no records of its true origin. The girl explained that the egg could contain the power of dragon ancestors and was therefore especially valuable. A specialist who understood magical creatures was called to study the egg. The scholar spoke about ancient dragon lineages and their connection to different types of magic. It turned out that Boru might descend from Viridra, and therefore his power interested the military. The girl realized that her own family had used dragons as tools for years. She recalled how she helped the guards and understood that her silence also contributed to cruelty. The girl admitted that she made a mistake when she believed the commander's promises. She learned that guilds were buying up dragons to create a slave army. The military wanted to make a contract with Boru and use him as a weapon in the war. The girl said that her mother once spoke about the terrible fate of dragons who were taken by force. Viridra explained that the enemies sought to turn Boru into a killing machine. He refused to accept the contract that would deprive the dragon of his own will. The commanders planned to use Boru as a weapon against other states and peoples. Rs heard the conversation and realized that his friend was going to be taken away forever. The girl decided to help Rs organize an escape from the camp. Other prisoners joined the plan because they all wanted to break free from the guild's control. They asked Rs to wait while they prepared a path through the guarded gates. One of the allies provided information about the location of the cages and the weak points of the barrier. Viridra arrived at the camp to return his grandson and punish those who tried to trade him. Boru saw his grandfather and realized that he finally got a chance to return to his people. Rs was afraid of losing his friend, but Boru promised not to forget their family. Viridra said that Boru must make his own choice, even if it is painful for everyone. Rs released the dragon, although his hands did not want to break the last embrace. Boru cried because for the first time he had to leave the person who had become a true friend to him. Rs understood that sometimes love means letting a loved one go for their safety. Boru returned to Viridra, and Rs stayed among friends who helped him endure the separation. A new battle began when the army tried to forcibly return the dragon and punish the fugitives. The commanders ordered to capture Rs alive because they considered him a source of rare magic. The child used power to protect the captives, but the attacks quickly exhausted her. The warriors used water and magical barriers to suppress the flames and limit Rs's movements. Rs learned to combine different properties of magic, forcing the enemies to retreat. His abilities surprised even experienced mages, who did not expect such power from a child. Ars fell after another blow, but refused to leave his friends unprotected. He got up when he heard the voices of the captives and decided to fight to the end. Ars pretended to want to become a hero, although in reality he only wanted to save Boru and others. He prepared the strongest move, trying to stop the entire enemy army with one strike. A lightning cannon struck the fortifications and tore through the enemy's defensive lines. The explosion destroyed part of the camp, but Saikyou ordered an immediate check to see if the prisoners were unharmed. The warriors lost control of the situation, and the allies used the chaos to make a final escape. After the battle, the participants began clearing the ruins, and Ars understood for the first time the true cost of his own power. After the explosion, Saikyou met Victor, a former night mage of Lawrence who arrived to assess Ars's strength. Victor reported that he had long been monitoring the child's magical manifestations and considered them extremely dangerous. Ars called himself strong, but Victor warned that true strength requires control and responsibility. He offered Ars to surrender in order to stop the destruction and protect those who remained nearby. Ars refused because he did not want to leave Boru or the prisoners in the hands of the enemies. Victor ordered him to flee, but Ars decided to open the way to his friends on his own. Victor's magical strikes tore the ground around Ars, forcing the child to dodge and conserve his strength. Ars tried to respond with lightning, but the attacker easily deflected the first strike. Yuyura ordered to use water to neutralize the flame and reduce pressure on the barrier. The combination of water and lightning magic created an explosion that momentarily stopped Victor. The prisoners took advantage of the pause and began evacuating children from the destroyed part of the camp. Ars thanked Yuyura because her quick reaction saved him from a direct hit. Victor prepared a new attack, and Ars's allies tried to divert his attention. Stone balls rained down from the sky, destroying shelters and cutting off paths to the gates. The wind changed the direction of the projectiles, and Ars was able to use defense along with offense for the first time. The magical barrier withstood several hits, but began to crack under the pressure of foreign power. Surrounding buildings were collapsing, and city residents tried to flee from the battle. Ars gathered the remnants of magic into one attack and broke through part of the stone fence. Victor responded with wind blades that nearly pushed a child into a destroyed building. Yuyura covered Ars, but her powers were quickly depleting. Boru saw that his friend was falling and tried to break through the guards. The warriors called Ars a mad child, not understanding that he was fighting for the freedom of the captives. Yuyura explained that the child did not seek destruction, but only tried to return his friend. A large demonic creature appeared nearby, which the enemies wanted to use for the final capture of the camp. Ars felt its power and realized that ordinary magic would not be enough. Boru rushed to Ars, but the guards pushed him away from his friend again. The child declared that she could fight the giant enemy herself, although Saikyou warned her. The allies tried to hold back the creature, while Ars accumulated power for the decisive strike. The defenders set a barrier around the children, but the demonic attack gradually destroyed it. Ars did not give up the dream of becoming a hero, because now that dream meant protecting his friends. Yuyura explained that dreams are hard to achieve if a person is not ready to overcome their own weakness. The conversation helped Ars regain courage and direct magic without a panic explosion. Yuyura revealed a part of her past, showing that she too once lost hope. She said that even the smallest chance can become the beginning of a new future. Ars remembered Urza and Saikyou and decided to return to them together with Boru. Yuyura asked Ars to tell them that he had not abandoned his friends. The demonic creature struck again, and Ars fell under the debris. He heard Boru's voice and remembered that he promised not to leave his friend. Ars got up, and his magic began to gather around his body in the form of bright light. He realized that courage did not mean the absence of fear, but required acting despite it. A small flash of magic grew into a powerful wave that pushed back the demonic creature. The Lion King tried to intercept the attack, but Ars's power forced him to retreat. The explosion tore apart part of the camp and opened a passage to Boru's cage. The prisoners ran outside while the enemies were recovering from the destruction. Ars used the last of his strength to repel the attack of the creature with sharp fangs. One of the commanders ordered to kill Boru if he could not be brought back under control. Ars rushed to his friend, declaring that he came not to conquer but to save him. Boru saw a true hero in him because Ars risked himself for the sake of another's freedom. The child rose among the debris and urged others not to give up. Their resistance inspired the prisoners, who together began to break the last restrictions of the camp. The enemy camp was almost destroyed, but Saikyou ordered to leave the battlefield until the remnants of the barriers collapsed. Yuyura returned to the wounded and promised to help them when they reached a safe place. Victor admitted that ours exceeded his expectations, although he still could not fully control the power. He praised the child for working for a friend, not for glory. Ours did not have time to respond because the walls around began to collapse again. Saikyou ordered everyone to leave the danger zone and take only the most necessary things. It turned out that the base's protective barrier was damaged and could no longer contain the magic. The excess power of ours spilled over the territory, causing plants and stones to move uncontrollably. Yuyura used water to partially neutralize the magic, but the source of the flare did not disappear. Saikyou found an exit through the old gates, which remained the only intact path. The prisoners began to come outside, and the guards lost the ability to return them to the cages. Viradra arrived at the camp and ordered his warriors not to touch the children. The Lion King declared that he had returned for Boru and would not allow him to be turned into a weapon. He told about the origin of the dragon and the ancient blood that connected Boru with his lineage. Viradra explained that the egg found in the camp came from his ancestors. The warriors tried to dispute his demands, but Viradra forced them to be silent by force. The destruction spread to the surrounding city, and the local residents began to leave their homes. Saikyou checked if Urza and Ars were safe, and received a sign that they could still return. Urza promised to protect the children, while Saikyou coordinated the retreat and negotiations. Viradra engaged in battle with a demon that was trying to break through to the captives. A great creature struck the Lion King, but he withstood the attack and responded with his own strength. The fight between them destroyed several buildings, forcing the allies to retreat further away. Urza used twilight magic to distract the demon and create a window for escape. She deflected part of the attack by changing the beam's direction and protecting the children. Viradra used a counterattack and pushed the monster back to the ruined wall. The demon rose, showing that its power exceeded that of an ordinary beast. Saikyou realized that the creature was artificially enhanced by magic and could regenerate damage. Other demonic beasts appeared around, beginning to surround the fugitives. Urza directed magic to protect the people, while Viradra held back the main attacker. Yuyura helped the captives pass through the breach in the barrier and not lose the children. One of the commanders told about the structure of the organization that traded dragons and magical creatures. The allies realized that the camp was only one of the points of a large network. Saikyou ordered not to pursue all enemies at once, but first to ensure the safety of the fugitives. The demon attacked again, and Viradra barely managed to deflect the blow from Boru. Ars returned to the fight, although his strength had not yet recovered after the previous outburst. Saikyou tried to stop the child, but Ars stated that he could not leave grandfather Boru alone. Viradra ordered Ars to retreat, and the child used magic to create an additional barrier. The barrier held the demon back, but cracks quickly spread across its entire surface. Yuyura urged Ars to trust his friends and not try to defeat the enemy alone. Ars combined his power with the magic of Urza and Yuyura, creating a joint strike. The demon retreated, and the prisoners for the first time got a chance to break out of the camp territory. Viradra noticed that Boru no longer wanted to return to his former life without Ars. He agreed to allow his grandson to decide for himself with whom and where to stay. Boru chose Ars, although he understood that this could put him at risk. Viradra accepted the grandson's decision and ordered to protect the people who helped him. The commanders of the organization fled, leaving behind maps of other camps and lists of prisoners. Saikyou decided to hand over the documents to the allies to destroy the creature trafficking network. Urza saw that Ars was exhausted and took him off the battlefield. Boru moved alongside, no longer hiding that he considered Ars his family. After the victory, the allies began to escort the prisoners to a safe city where negotiations were to take place. Outside the camp, the allies encountered a great force that could either help the fugitives or return them back. Saikyou proposed to erase the memories of captivity, but Urza refused to destroy people's memories without their consent. Boru did not break after what he experienced, and insisted that his decision to stay with Ars was his own. Yuyura opened the gates to the temporary shelter where the wounded could rest. Ars asked for permission to go outside because he wanted to check if all his friends were safe. Yuyura calmed him down and informed him that Boru was staying nearby. The dragon grew and became significantly stronger, but still behaved like Ars's childhood companion. Boru told about the captivity and how they tried to turn him into a weapon. Ars promised not to allow anyone to take Boru by force anymore. Saikyou emphasized that protection required not only strength, but also allies and legal agreements. Yuyura agreed to help because she also wanted to destroy the organization that traded magical creatures. Viradra ordered part of the warriors to return to their lands and prepare a reception for Boru. The Lion King himself stayed to finish the fight with the main demon. The opponents met among the ruins, and each strike cracked the ground around them. Kakyu and Urza took the children aside while Yuyura prepared protective magic. Viradra reminded Boru of his origin and responsibility to the dragon clan. Boru replied that he did not want to live only by the rules of the ancestors, and sought to remain a friend of ours. Viradra admitted that the power of the dragon is meaningless, without the right to determine its use oneself. He explained how the egg preserved the memory and magic of the ancient line. The organization wanted to use this power to create an entire army of tamed dragons. Viradra became angry when he heard that people were called owners of dragons. His strike destroyed part of the city square and forced the enemies to retreat. Urza asked Kakyu to watch over Ars because the child was trying to rush into battle again. Kakyu explained to Ars that protecting a friend does not mean neglecting one's own life. Ars agreed to help others, but did not abandon the intention to free all the prisoners. One of the enemies threatened to kill the children if Viradra did not surrender. The Lion King responded with an attack and broke the chain that restrained the wounded dragon. Yuyura used magic to deflect the blows flying toward the shelter. Kakyu ordered to divide the forces and not allow the demons to surround the children. Viradra entered the battle again, and his allies began coordinating attacks. Urza combined her twilight magic with Yuyura's protective spells. The reflected beam struck the enemy, but the demon immediately changed form. The creature became even larger, and additional limbs appeared around it. Viradra realized that the enemy was artificially supported by numerous magical cores. Each destroyed core weakened the demon but simultaneously caused a new explosion. The allies split up to strike the cores from different sides. Ars used a small portion of his power and marked the weak spot on the creature's body. Viradra took advantage of his hint and struck directly at the center of the magical node. The demon roared and its body began to lose integrity. The enemies tried to retreat, but Kakyu ordered not to allow them to take the records and prisoners. Yuyura led the freed people to the exit, leaving the fight to the stronger warriors. Viradra gathered the remnants of the army and ordered to cover the retreat of the children. The demon's last attack broke through the square but could not destroy the main core. Ars raised magic again, although Urza demanded not to overload the body. Boru offered to help, and together they directed the flame at the weakened area. Kakyo finished the strike with lightning magic and destroyed the central core. The demon fell and the rest of the magical beasts lost control. The prisoners left the city carrying documents that could expose the entire network. Viradra ordered Boru to return with him but allowed Ars to visit their lands. After the battle, the allies agreed not to hide the organization's crimes and to jointly protect the freed creatures. Kakyo and his companions discussed the consequences of the battle, while Viradra prepared to return to his own kingdom. The trading Pamola again became the center of their negotiations and the meeting place of various allies. Kakyo ordered to quickly leave the dangerous zone because enemies could return for the documents. On the road, they saw a communication post that simultaneously served as a watchtower and a hostage holding place. The allies learned that the post workers were held to prevent them from warning other settlements about the attack. Kakyo decided to free the people and use the post to transmit news between cities. He asked to act quickly before the enemies could gather reinforcements. In the trading city, Kakyo became interested in the market where new deals and services were discussed. Pamola turned out to be a central hub of the business network through which goods from different countries passed. Kakyo decided to use the revival of the Lion King to expand his own trade connections. He learned about an underground headquarters where organization records and client lists were stored. Urza helped analyze the documents using experience from former service and knowledge of political connections. Kakyo gathered merchants and announced that it was time to act openly against slave traders. Part of the guild was disbanded, and its leaders were placed under the supervision of allied states. The workers were offered to come under Kakyu's leadership, keeping their jobs and receiving protection. He promised not to change their daily work if they did not support criminal trade. To those who resisted and continued trading people, Kakyu threatened severe punishment. Some guards attacked the allies, and Kakyu had to show that his words were not empty threats. After a brief clash, he took control of the warehouse and confiscated illegal property. Kakyu decided to buy a noble title to legally represent the family's interests in negotiations. A new chapter began with his plan to turn trade success into political influence. He distributed profits among allies so that everyone benefited from the joint venture. Kakyu agreed to repay part of Viradra's debts and help his army after the battle. Urza reminded that even a profitable deal should not restore the old system of slavery. Kakyu confirmed that he remembered their plan, to rise socially without losing humanity. He drafted a development scheme from a freed slave and merchant to a full-fledged noble. The first step was to conclude agreements with several races and ensure joint routes. Saikyou reported that he already had an army of allies and tens of thousands of people ready to support him. He began accepting new participants who sought protection from criminal guilds. The allies called it a source of great prestige, although Saikyou warned of future risks. For trade, they restored the bridge and roads destroyed during the demon attack. Saikyou decided to turn the crisis into an opportunity to build an independent network. He refused to rely solely on force, as coercion would create new enemies. Urza supported negotiations that could unite merchants, mages, and freed beings. New allies increased the number of people under Saikyou's protection and reduced the influence of old guilds. Some merchants wanted to use Saikyou to conquer neighboring markets. He rejected excessive demands and insisted on agreements guaranteeing mutual benefit. The participants in the negotiations discussed the treatment of slaves and the gradual prohibition of illegal contracts. Saikyou noticed that the technique of one of the young mages was imperfect, but had great potential. He offered training so that the abilities would not become a threat to the mage himself. Urza helped to create a training program that combined discipline and care. Ars observed the adults and began to understand that the strength of the family depends on cooperation. Boro returned to them after a meeting with Viridra, and Ars joyfully rushed to meet him. The child used healing magic to reduce the pain of a friend after a long journey. Urza saw that Ars had learned to help without losing control over magic. Saikyou praised him but reminded that even good magic required caution. Ars asked why different races are so unlike each other. The answer led them to a temple where they told about the blessed treasures of the gods. Saikyou showed the children a temporary shelter created for those who lost their home. Ars suggested playing with other children because he wanted the shelter to become a safe place for them. Yuyura woke up after a hard battle, but her condition still did not allow her to return to work immediately. Boro stayed nearby and asked her not to get up until the wounds fully healed. Saikyou reported that Yuyura almost lost consciousness during the last attack. Urza used healing magic to remove the pain and stabilize her condition. After recovery, Yuyura and Ars became friends, and the other children began to call their group special. Ars asked if Yuyura could use magic, but she replied that she had not yet regained all her strength. Yuyura smiled when she saw how Boru and Ars tried to support her. Boru showed his wings and offered Ars a ride, but the adults forbade flying without preparation. Ars was fascinated by his friend's wings and decided that he too must learn to fly. His first attempt ended unsuccessfully, but he immediately wanted to try again. Yuyura explained that people could not fly naturally unless they had special magic. Boru told about the draconic nature and the differences between his people and humans. Ars was surprised that even among dragons not all had the same abilities. Yuyura explained that diversity was not a flaw, but helped races survive together. Ars began to notice that each of his friends differed in character, strength, and way of thinking. Yuyura admitted that she liked studying what she initially did not understand. She believed that people could learn from each other precisely because of differences. During the lesson, they recalled the blessing of the dragon god and its influence on magical races. Ars learned that humans and magical creatures perceived fear and strength differently. The friends decided to talk more to avoid repeating conflicts that arose from misunderstandings. Ars exclaimed that he understood the answer and ran to inform Urzu about the new idea. He asked why children and adults so often made mistakes in perceiving other races. Boro showed how his wings worked to explain the difference between natural and magical abilities. Ars again declared that he wanted to become a hero and protect all his friends. Yuyura said that she dreams of becoming a scientist and studying unknown phenomena of the world. Ars wanted to become stronger like Saikyou and Urza, but heard that the strength of the heart is more important than muscles. New acquaintances called Saikyou uncle because they began to perceive him as the protector of the entire community. Children from the settlement joined the game, and different races spent time together without fear for the first time. Yuyura decided to return to her family but promised to meet her friends again. Ars said goodbye to her, understanding that friendship does not disappear because of distance. Urza confessed that Yuyura's kindness reminded her of the people who once believed in her. She decided to repay the former family by helping them survive the consequences of past events. Saikyou prepared documents for a new appeal to the authorities of Lawrence. Merchants submitted a request to the emperor to recognize their agreements and grant Saikyou legal status. Representatives of the court agreed to consider the request, but demanded proof of his merits. Saikyou presented an alliance with the Lion King and the Guild, which now helped freed creatures. He was offered a noble title as a reward for defending cities and trade routes. The queen separately thanked Saikyou for reducing the influence of slave traders. Saikyou asked not only for a reward but also for legal protection for Urza, Arsa, and Boru. The court reported on a new criminal network that might be connected to the old organization. Saikyou agreed to hand over the collected documents and testimonies of freed prisoners. One of those present turned out to be a traitor who tried to hide connections with slave traders. Urza recognized signs of a conspiracy and warned Saikyou about the danger. Guards surrounded the hall when it became clear that enemies were preparing an attack on the court. The new chapter began with Saikyou's ambition to turn trade success into lasting peace. He proposed to unite merchants, hunters, and mages under a single set of rules. The guilds agreed to support him if Saikyou ensured safe routes and fair taxes. The queen ordered an inspection of all trading houses that might have participated in illegal deals. Saikyou promised to prove that his alliance was not a temporary union for the sake of power. The participants of the negotiations accepted the first conditions of the new order, but the hidden threat remained undisclosed. Saikyou stated that the true power of provincial rulers depends not only on the title, but also on the support of the people. He presented his achievements to the ruler and asked to be granted a lawful status. The queen agreed to recognize his merits, but warned that the path to nobility would require new trials. Saikyou received the right to claim a land title as a reward for defending the kingdom. He was sent to the regional governor, who had to decide whether a merchant was capable of governing the territory. Saikyou asked to forward the request directly to the governor, not allowing officials to hide his information. The governor stated that he could grant land to refugees, but demanded guarantees of security from Saikyou. In the city, Saikyou met representatives of the former guild who offered to help with new connections. He realized that even friendly nobles could use his success for their own benefit. Saikyou requested the title of landowner to have lawful authority over the future territory. The governor spoke about a daughter of noble lineage who had elven origin and special political influence. Her family maintained connections with demons and had ancient treaties with magical peoples. The negotiations became complicated because each side sought to gain control over the future land. Saikyou proved that his trading experience would allow him to hold the territory even without a large army. He was given 1 month to show the first results and gather a sufficient number of settlers. The queen asked Saikyou to demonstrate ambition rather than limit himself to the role of a merchant. He accepted the condition, although he understood that 1 month was too short to establish a new settlement. Saikyou requested land near the forest, where different races and freed refugees could live. He planned to build a trading system that would provide the territory with resources and independence. Urza warned that without legitimate authority, they could easily be expelled or attacked by stronger neighbors. Saikyou agreed to take the risk because he did not want Ars to grow up in a city where everyone feared differences. Refugees, mercenaries, and craftsmen seeking a safe place to live joined him. Saikyou distributed work among them, starting with roads, warehouses, and defensive fortifications. He suggested to his subordinates to rise socially along with the territory, rather than remain dependent on the old owners. Profits from trade Saikyou directed towards construction, food, and payment for security. Some allies doubted his decision, but Saikyou demanded trust in the common plan. Urza monitored the documents and reminded that every mistake could deprive them of land rights. They chose a plot that had access to trade routes and water sources. Saikyou explained that the new settlement should become a home for the family, not just a profitable enterprise. Ars heard this and decided to help the adults, although he was not yet allowed to participate in dangerous work. Boru began patrolling the outskirts, scaring off predators and checking the safety of the future settlement. Sebas sent help and warned that neighboring landowners might oppose the new competitor. Saikyou met Liana, the head of Sebas's company branch in Pamal. She offered material supplies and helped organize a new route. Liana thanked Saikyou for rescuing the workers and agreed to support his project. Sebas's company opened a warehouse, which became the first stable source of goods for the territory. Saikyou began teaching Ars the basics of trade, but Urza asked not to overload the child. Ars listened attentively and wanted to prove that he could also be useful to the family. New deals revitalized the local economy and attracted the attention of other merchants. Saikyou realized that the development of the territory made him a target for competitors. The governor sent inspectors to assess the legality of his construction. Urza prepared the documents and proved that all workers received payment and protection. Some officials tried to find violations, but Saikyou anticipated their demands in advance. The inspection results were better than the opponents of the new settlement expected. The governor acknowledged that Saikyou knew how to organize people, although he had no experience managing land yet. He was allowed to continue construction on the condition of complying with the kingdom's rules. Saikyou ordered to create a school and shelter for children so that the territory would not become just a military base. Urza took up teaching small children, combining discipline with care. Ars began helping her, explaining to other children that differences between races do not make anyone worse. The first stage of construction was completed, but Saikyou realized that the real struggle was only beginning. Saikyou explained to the ruler that different peoples could live together only in a place that recognized them all. He called the future territory a homeland because people invested everything they had into it. Saikyou stated that he did not want to simply found a new kingdom by old rules. He dreamed of creating a place where race and origin would not determine the right to life. The ruler asked how Saikyou intended to protect such an idea from greedy rulers. Saikyou replied that he would build his own territory from scratch, relying on allies and the work of the inhabitants. He showed a list of people who had already agreed to move and start a new life. Saikyou asked to allow them to call the settlement home, not a temporary refugee camp. The ruler agreed to use the name Valky for the new territory. She told about ancestors who once united scattered tribes around a common land. Saikyou was asked to formulate his ambition, and he named not power but a safe future for Arsa. He explained that the homeland should be a place where children are not afraid of foreign laws. The participants of the negotiations discussed the status of the land, taxes, and the duties of the future ruler. Urza recalled that her elven origin was once used against her. She supported the idea of a country where no child would be punished for blood or magic. Old records told about wars that arose due to rivalry among peoples and the struggle for resources. Saikyou decided not to repeat this history and to unite defenders of different origins. His ideal country should allow everyone to work, study, and defend themselves without humiliation. Some nobles called the plan too naive because they considered inequality a natural order. The conversation was interrupted when news appeared about the escape of a fire dragon. Saikyou recalled previous attacks and suspected that the dragon was again intended to be used as a weapon. Urza warned that pursuing the creature could provoke a new war. The ruler ordered to find out who released the dragon and why this was hidden from the court. Ars heard the adult's argument and decided that he must help Bouei. Saikyou explained to the child that good intentions do not justify dangerous methods. Urza reminded how past mistakes had already led to the loss of people. Suddenly, one of the arriving warriors attacked a council representative, accusing him of treason. The Lion King arrived for a trial meant to determine who was worthy to lead his army. He reported that in a forest cave, a chimera creature had kidnapped a cub from a foreign lair. Saikyou asked not to kill the creature until it became clear why it took the child. The Lion King ordered the cub to be returned alive and began trials for his warriors. The participants divided into squads, and Saikyou had to act together with Viridra and new allies. One of the contenders challenged Viridra to a fight, wishing to prove his own strength. Viridra repelled the attacker, but ordered him not to confuse cruelty with courage. The test of fangs required protecting the cub without destroying the entire forest. Saikyou assessed the strength of the contenders and understood who could act wisely under pressure. Part of the warriors stayed behind, but Saikyou continued the search for the cave. He ordered not to attack every creature because not all beasts were enemies. Viridra saw in Saikyou a leader who could restrain those stronger than himself. The chimera tried to escape, carrying the cub deep into the forest. Saikyou convinced the allies to surround her and not to deliver a fatal blow. Viridra agreed, although part of the warriors demanded to destroy the creature immediately. After rescuing the cub, the contenders began to argue about who had the right to become captain. Viridra declared that he would accept the one who could be responsible for others, not just win in battle. Saikyou asked Viridra to show his ambitions to understand the true purpose of the trial. The Lion King admitted that he sought to expand the tribe and create a state for his people. His ambition turned out to be close to Saikyou's dream of a safe homeland. They agreed that different territories could cooperate if they did not impose rules on each other. Viridra appointed a new captain who proved the ability to protect the weak. Saikyou returned to negotiations with the understanding that the future homeland would need not one, but many leaders. Saikyou agreed to build the homeland together with those who had already lost their homes. He explained that the new settlement should not repeat the mistakes of old countries. The ruler asked who would guarantee the safety of the children, and Saikyou named the entire community. Urza reminded that even the best plan would break if the residents did not trust each other. Saikyou gathered a council of representatives of humans, elves, beastmen, and demons. Each people presented their own needs, and the negotiations almost turned into a dispute. Ars asked to listen to the children, because they would have to live in the country created by adults. His words made the participants focus not on old grievances, but on the future. Saikyou ordered the construction of a school, a hospital, and a warehouse for communal supplies to begin. Urza took on the preparation of education, where children of different races could meet without fear. Baru began patrolling the settlement's borders, and Yuyura helped create a communication system. The first inhabitants argued over language, customs, and food distribution rules. Saikyou introduced communal meetings so that no group would hide problems from others. He banned slave trade on the territory and ordered the release of those brought by force. Old merchants tried to circumvent the ban, but Urza exposed their schemes. Saikyou confiscated goods and placed the freed people under the community's protection. The governor came to check whether the new land had turned into an independent rebellion. Saikyou showed documents, taxes, and the security system, proving the settlement's legality. The government representative admitted that the residents worked more efficiently than many old provinces. He allowed the construction to continue, but warned about the necessity of paying taxes. Saikyou agreed because he understood that legal status protected the settlement from sudden seizure. Urza gained the right to teach, and children of various backgrounds came to her class. She taught them to read maps, understand magic, and respect others' boundaries. Ars showed the children a small magical trick, but Urza made him first explain the safety rules. The lesson ended with laughter when Boru accidentally destroyed part of the teaching stand. Saikyou received a message about an attack on a remote settler camp. He sent a relief squad, but ordered not to take revenge without verifying the circumstances. Scouts discovered that the attackers were mercenaries hired by neighboring landowners. Saikyou began negotiations to prevent an open war beyond the new territory. The mercenaries demanded part of the land and threatened to destroy the settlement if they did not receive consent. Viridra proposed to crush them by force, but Saikyou asked to give a chance to a peaceful solution. Urza found evidence that the mercenaries were incited by a merchant who feared losing profit. Saikyou made the documents public before the governor and forced the client to abandon the attack. Part of the mercenaries agreed to come under the protection of the new territory. Saikyou accepted them but demanded to swear by the community rules and renounce slave trade. The settlement began to grow rapidly, and the old buildings no longer accommodated all the residents. Liana organized the supply of wood, stone, and grain through Sebas's company. Ars helped carry light things, striving not to stay away from adult affairs. Urza reminded that childhood was also an important part of the future homeland. Saikyou agreed to create safe places for children's play and learning. A conflict arose in the community over land distribution, because several families claimed the same plot. Saikyou proposed to resolve the dispute by open voting, not allowing the stronger to take the land. The decision was supported after all parties saw the advantages of the joint plan. Urza noted that simple rules sometimes protected better than fear of the ruler. Saikyou began preparing a trip to Pamola to purchase goods for the new stage of construction. Boru asked to take him along, but Saikyou instructed him to stay and guard the children. Ars was upset that he could not go with his father but agreed to help Urza. Before leaving, Saikyou gathered the council and handed over temporary powers to it. He ordered not to start conflicts, even if neighbors tried to provoke the settlement. The squad set off for the city, leaving the new homeland under the protection of its first inhabitants. Saikyou returned to the history of the village that once accepted him after he lost his memory. He tried to understand why memories returned in fragments and changed his attitude toward the past. The old inhabitants said that Saikyou lived among them and helped build the settlement. The village was destroyed by attackers who did not accept people with unusual abilities. Saikyou understood that the idea of the homeland was born from the desire to never lose a home again. He told the allies that he wanted to create a territory where even exiles could start anew. The ruler asked if Saikyou was truly ready to take responsibility for every new inhabitant. Saikyou agreed because he could no longer separate his own ambitions from the safety of his family. Urza supported him, emphasizing that a home is defined not by walls but by the people inside. Ars heard the story about the destroyed village and wanted to help restore justice. Saikyou explained that the new homeland could not exist without a sufficient number of workers and defenders. Craftsmen, farmers, and mages who had no place in the old states were invited to the settlement. The settlers signed the community rules and agreed not to use slave labor. Urza discovered that some of the arrivals were even afraid to name their own race. She helped them open up, explaining that in the new home no one would demand hiding their origin. Saikyou ordered the construction of a common square where residents could hold meetings and celebrations. Elders of different peoples began to argue about whose customs should become dominant. Saikyou proposed to let each people keep their own traditions, but to establish unified safety laws. The ruler acknowledged that such an order required more patience than ordinary submission. The new settlement was named Valki and began to form its own history. Saikyou organized road security so that merchants could safely deliver building materials. Yuyura helped create a network of signal towers around the territory. Boru patrolled the mountains and reported the appearance of predators or enemy scouts. Ars taught children to give signals if they saw danger near the settlement. Urza noted that even simple training made children more confident. Saikyou decided to visit the new school, but Ars asked him not to disturb the lessons. The children wanted to learn different things, and asked adults not to limit them to only useful skills. Urza allowed them to explore magic, but required adherence to safety rules. Saikyou noticed that free education had already changed the attitude of the races towards each other. At the same time, he was informed about suspicious activity in Pamali and a possible leak of trade data. Scouts discovered that someone was tracking Saikyou's routes and looking for weak spots in his territory. The documents mentioned a military class that collaborated with demons and was preparing a new conflict. Saikyou asked to check whether the records were connected to government officials. Urza found copies of old reports where attacks on refugee settlements were concealed. Saikyou decided not to wait for an official response and formed his own defense group. The latest report confirmed that the perpetrators could have appeared in Pamali disguised as traders. Saikyou warned allies not to trust strangers who offered profitable deals too quickly. Liana prepared documents and helped track companies involved in illegal transportation. Urza asked Saikyou to take her to the city because her experience could help identify old associates. Ars wanted to join the defense squad, but Saikyou instructed him to stay with the children. The squad arrived at the gates of Pamola, where the guards were checking every carriage. Saikyou showed the governor's documents and received permission to enter without delay. At the market, the allies began buying goods while simultaneously watching suspicious people. Liana reported a new task to purchase supplies and find out the origin of an unknown intermediary. Saikyou assigned roles so that the purchases would not draw attention to the true purpose of the trip. Urza noticed a person trying to leave the trading district unnoticed. She followed him and discovered a warehouse with goods that had forbidden magical marks. Saikyou ordered not to enter inside without reinforcements because the warehouse could be a trap. The squad returned to the gates to inform the city about the discovered violation. Before departure, Saikyou received a new order to head to the mountain territory where patrols had disappeared. In the mountain settlement, Saikyou met Guise, a former hero and the strongest warrior among humans. Guise offered Ars a training fight to check if the child really had talent. Ars agreed, but Urza asked Guise not to use full force against him. The first strike of the warrior knocked Ars back, but the child quickly got up and continued the fight. Guise was surprised by Ars's endurance and realized that he did not rely solely on magic. Ars called the duel the best training and asked Guise to show even more techniques. Saikyou began to think about how to use Guise's talent to defend the new territory. Guise said that he lacked friends, and Ars immediately offered to become his companion. They discovered that Guise bore the same name as the legendary hero of the past. Urza compared the chance meeting to a butterfly whose flight could cause a storm in another part of the world. Guise agreed to join Saikyou after seeing Ars's sincerity. The new squad set out for the Valki Mountains, where patrols noticed a pack of wolves. Scouts reported 2 wolf tracks on the first route. The patrol commander explained that the pack was moving southeast and could attack the settlement. The warriors discovered an injured animal and realized that the wolves had used poison. The fog concealed part of the forest, causing the scouts to lose visual contact with the pack. Yuyura determined that the poison was spreading by the wind and could contaminate the land near human homes. The squad found wolf tracks that had recently crossed the road and headed towards the caves. Saikyou ordered a retreat from the open area to avoid falling into an ambush. Guise suggested leading the main attack because his strength could withstand the bite of a poisoned beast. The commanders divided the forces. The main group was to move through the center while the scouts would flank the pack. The warriors began advancing quickly through the forest, not giving the wolves time to scatter. Saikyou ordered to find the den to destroy the source of the poison and save the settlement. Leone's squad flanked the pack from the right side and pushed the wolves towards the mountains. The scouts discovered a cave where the animals were hiding and storing poisoned prey. The commander fired a signal rocket, reporting the location of the den. Saikyou ordered not to enter the cave alone because the enemy could be waiting in the narrow passage. Guise saw a stranger near the entrance and suspected that he was leading the pack. The man did not answer the question and suddenly attacked the warriors. His strike shattered the stones, and Saikyou barely managed to pull Urza away from the dangerous wave. The attacker used lightning, which struck the ground in front of the squad. Guys responded with a hand-to-hand technique, not relying on magic. He cut through the lightning attack with his bare hands, surprising even Kakyo. The attacker explained that his power was not an ordinary spell, and worked through the natural movement of air. Guys called his technique the way of the true sky, because the lightning followed the shortest trajectory. Ars was fascinated by the warrior's technique, and wanted to learn to control energy the same way. Guys demonstrated that he could tear the air at the speed of a strike, and direct the flow around himself. Kakyo realized that the warrior's ability depended on precise calculation, not brute force. The lightning changed direction before reaching the target and destroyed part of the slope. The debris blocked the entrance to the cave, forcing the squad to look for another way. Kakyo asked who the attacker was and why he controlled the poisoned wolves. The man stated that the pack was only a test for those claiming a stronger status. Guys refused to retreat because he wanted to protect the people threatened by the poison. Ars created a small barrier and helped the scouts pass through the collapse. Urza used magic to cleanse the air of the poisonous fog. The wolves rushed to attack, but the squad met them with a coordinated strike. Guys broke through to the pack leader and forced him to retreat deeper into the cave. Kakyo ordered to block the exits so the attacker would not escape with the source of the poison. Ars heard a strange sound from the darkness and realized that another enemy was hiding in the cave. The squad prepared for a new fight when an unknown creature appeared from the darkness. Kakyo and his companions encountered an unknown creature in the cave, but Guys took the first blow. The attacker turned out to be a former adventurer who had long lost trust in people. He called himself Guys and demonstrated strength that far exceeded ordinary human capabilities. Guys apologized for the late introduction, but immediately demanded to test Ars's abilities. A new chapter began with Guys being appointed as the fencing instructor for the Knights of Windsong. At the training ground, Guys ordered the students to start fighting without fear of his advantage. The first strikes showed that the warriors could not keep up with his speed. Ars observed the training and tried to understand how Guys combined strength and precision. Guys knocked down several opponents, but did not inflict serious injuries on them. He explained that good training was meant to show mistakes, not to turn into revenge. Kakyo asked Guys to teach Ars carefully, without forcing the child to copy someone else's style. Guys praised Ars's attentiveness and acknowledged that the boy already had significant potential. Other warriors began to learn by his example, observing the movements and reactions of the enemy. Guys ordered the students to look not at the weapon, but at the body position and the direction of intent. Urza attended the training and saw that Ars wanted too much to prove his usefulness. Kakyo stopped the child when she tried to enter a dangerous duel. Guys supported Kakyo's decision because strength without control could make Ars a threat to friends. The training continued at a slow pace so that each student would remember the basics of the techniques. Guys showed how to use the bare hand to defend against an armed opponent. Ars noticed that even a blind warrior could read movements through sound and air vibrations. Urza asked how Guys oriented himself, but he replied that he trusted all senses, not just his eyes. The trainer said that a magical curse destroyed his sight, but at the same time forced him to develop other abilities. Ars was not afraid of his appearance and asked to become a friend, not just a teacher. Guys accepted the offer because he had not met a child who did not treat him with fear for a long time. Kakyo decided to leave Guys in Valky so that he would train the defenders of the future homeland. The students organized a joint training session where Ars was able to demonstrate his own magical techniques. Guys acknowledged that the boy's talent was unusual but demanded discipline. Urza asked not to turn Ars into a weapon because the child had already endured too many battles. Kakyo promised that the training would help Ars defend himself, not participate in other people's wars. Guys proposed creating a regular training program for different races. The warriors learned to work together, using different abilities instead of rivalry. Ars saw that teamwork gave better results than a solitary heroic strike. Guys asked him to describe 3 people in front of him, testing attention to detail. Ars correctly identified their positions but missed a hidden movement of one of the students. Guys explained that observation was also part of strength and could save lives. Urza slowly walked across the training ground after being wounded, and Kakyo did not allow her to overexert herself. She admitted that her legs still hurt, although outwardly she tried not to show weakness. Kakyo helped Urza move without haste, and Guys continued the lesson for the others. The students noticed that Urza had combat experience and could move better than many novices. She refused extra attention because she wanted to return to regular work. In the evening, Ars asked Guys to tell about his past on the battlefield. Guys explained that he was once an adventurer, but lost comrades due to his own overconfidence. He left the battlefield after a curse deprived him of sight and his former status. Kakyo offered him a new place among people who did not judge a warrior only by appearance. Guys agreed to be a mentor, although he did not consider himself worthy of a second chance. Ars convinced him that past mistakes do not cancel out future good deeds. The training ended with a celebration for the students, who for the first time felt like a single team. Kakyo saw that Guys began to trust his new comrades. Urza thanked him for teaching Ars without cruelty. Guys promised to protect the children of Valky, even if it meant going back to the battlefield. A conflict arose in Valky between former members of the Epark Guild and supporters of the new order Kakyu. The old workers demanded punishment, and Kakyu offered them a choice between correction and exile. Some people feared change because they were used to working under the orders of a stronger master. Kakyu explained that the law cannot be based solely on fear of punishment. Viridra supported him but warned that trust between former enemies would not arise in one day. Guys asked not to allow former criminals to benefit from the community's kindness without proof of change. Urza agreed because she knew how easily good intentions turn into a cover for new crimes. Ars heard the dispute and asked why adults could not simply come to an agreement. Kakyu explained that a fair agreement requires acknowledgement of guilt and willingness to change behavior. The council decided to check workers gradually, without depriving them of the opportunity to start anew. Part of the guild agreed to help with the construction, but demanded guarantees that they would not be exploited. Kakyu documented the rules in writing so that no party could distort the agreement. During the meeting, one of the former leaders tried to disrupt the negotiations. He stated that the residents of Valky only pretended to be good people, hiding their own interests. Kakyu did not object, but acknowledged that each participant had their own benefit from the new order. Urza added that the common benefit did not cancel the obligation not to harm the weaker ones. Ars proposed holding a joint celebration so that people could get to know each other not only through disputes. Guys supported the idea and took on the organization of security. In Valky, they began preparing food, music, and a playground for the children's games. Kakyu doubted whether the celebration was appropriate after the conflict, but Urza convinced him to give people a chance. The first guests came cautiously, not knowing how to behave next to former enemies. Boro helped carry heavy tables, immediately attracting the attention of the children. Ars introduced various inhabitants, turning tense meetings into joint games. Guys prepared a large dish, and its smell gradually dispelled the guests' wariness. Urza noticed that people began talking about ordinary matters instead of old grievances. The celebration became the first event where all Valky races sat at one table. Kakyu spoke before the community and thanked those who agreed to build the future together. He asked not to demand instant trust, but to prove it with daily actions. Ars raised a glass of juice to friends and made the adults smile. Guys admitted that shared food and honest conversation helped better than many orders. The next day, the council began regular reports on the territory's development. Representatives of agriculture reported on the harvest and the shortage of labor. The head of security reported on new patrols and the need to strengthen the gates. Representatives of education requested more materials for the school. Kakyu distributed resources, not allowing one sector to take all the funding. Urza reminded that the moral upbringing of children was no less important than building walls. Ars stated that he wanted to help the school, not just play with Boru. Kakyu entrusted him with simple tasks so that the child would learn responsibility without danger. Guys proposed holding open training sessions for all who wished. The council agreed, provided the training would not turn into compulsory military service. In the evening, Kakyu received news of an attack on a caravan near Valky. Scouts reported that the attackers might be connected to a disbanded guild. Kakyu ordered to verify the facts because he did not want to punish the innocent due to an old feud. Urza recognized in the description of the attackers a symbol she had already seen at an illegal warehouse. Guys prepared a squad, and Kakyu decided to accompany it personally. Ars asked to be taken along, but Kakyu left the child under Urza's supervision. Before leaving, Kakyu promised to return before the end of the community festival. Viridra agreed to guard Valky while the main group set out for the caravan. The squad left the settlement boundaries, not knowing if an ambush awaited them. In the forest, they saw signs of a battle and realized that the attackers were much stronger than ordinary bandits. After returning to the city, Guys stayed among his comrades, and his past continued to attract attention. The meeting with former companions reminded the hero of the path he once chose. People around noticed traces of old adventures on Guys' face and body. His calm behavior concealed the fatigue from a life in which he constantly had to fight. Gradually, it became clear that Guys no longer wanted to return to his former role as a wandering adventurer. The conversation about the past revealed his connection with Walder Bren, who was once a mentor to him. Guys reluctantly accepted the help of friends, although he was used to relying only on his own strength. Emily and other companions tried to convince him not to push away people who sincerely cared about him. Eventually, the detachment moved to the settlement where new news awaited them. At the regular meeting, the residents discussed changes in the kingdom and the consequences of recent events. Reports showed that various districts were gradually recovering after the danger. Special attention was given to the movement of people and goods between allied lands. At the same time, it became clear that the threat of demons had not completely disappeared. Among the new messages, a strange enemy was mentioned, who possessed a human form and unusual strength. After the meeting ended, the residents gathered for a communal celebration. The festivity allowed the warriors to lay down their weapons briefly and rest. Guys initially kept to himself, but gradually joined the general atmosphere. Friends made sure he was not left alone amid the festivities. People of different origins gathered at the tables, united by shared trials. The festive dinner turned into an opportunity to calmly talk about the future. Shared food reminded the heroes that peaceful life required no less care than victories. Guys carefully observed his comrades and noticed how their relationships had changed. His silence did not spoil the evening, because those close to him already understood his character. After the celebration, the conversation again turned to Guys' past exploits. One of those present recognized in him a hero once called the Giant Slayer. Such a mention made Guys explain why he left the profession of adventurer. He linked this decision to exhaustion and the consequences of an ancient curse. The companions understood that his strength came at a high price for the owner himself. After the celebration, the squad returned to practical matters and new assignments. Meanwhile, in the kingdom, they began checking the routes by which demons could move. Military reports indicated a lack of reliable information about the enemy. Some of the tracks led to distant lands where ordinary scouts could not operate safely. Because of this, the Allies began preparing a separate expedition. People with experience working in dangerous regions were involved in the preparation. Guys learned that one of the investigations was connected to a creature that had escaped pursuit. Along with this, there were mentions of people disappearing near ports and border settlements. The lack of unified command complicated the search for the fugitive. The participants of the meeting compared old records with new testimonies. This way, they discovered that similar cases had already occurred several years ago. The traces led to former participants of the campaign against demons. Guys recalled Walder, who once gathered information about such threats. His mentor believed that demons could act much more cunningly than people thought. The conversation about Walder made Guys' past even more painful. Despite this, the hero decided to share everything he knew about the old campaigns. The information helped determine the direction of future reconnaissance. When the preparation was completed, it became clear that the expedition had to set off far to the north. There was an icy continent about which conflicting rumors circulated. The journey required special clothing, supplies, and magical equipment. Guys agreed to join the squad, although he understood that the cold would worsen his curse. The expedition set out, opening a new stage of searches and dangerous trials. On the way to the northern lands, the squad received news of another clash with demons. The enemy retreated, but left behind destroyed fortifications and wounded warriors. Guys realized that the threat was growing faster than the allies could respond.
The players retreated behind cover, and Maple ordered not to use all.
He decided not to allow his friends to face the strongest demon alone. However, the comrades did not agree to leave him behind. During the discussion, it turned out that Guys' magical power was almost exhausted. His body also barely withstood the burden of the curse. Other squad members reminded that victory was meaningless if the hero died afterward. Guys still insisted on personally participating in the upcoming battle. He explained that he had to finish the task once started by his mentor. Companions noticed that behind the hero's stubbornness was a fear of losing someone else. After a difficult conversation, Guys agreed to act together with the squad. At the same time, he asked to prepare an extreme method to restore his magic. It was about forced sorcery that could damage the body. Friends approached such a plan with caution. Guys admitted that he had no other way to match the demon. On the journey, he explained the principle of how the magical power of living beings works. Magic arose from life energy, but its supply was not limitless. When the body weakened, even a strong sorcerer lost the ability to create spells. Demons differed in that they used their own cores of power much more efficiently. That is why ordinary attacks caused them almost no harm. Guys explained that his curse constantly absorbed part of the available energy. Others understood why after every great battle he took a long time to recover. Despite the risk, preparations for forced sorcery continued. Guise did not allow his comrades to shift the responsibility for this decision onto themselves. He accepted the possible consequences and asked to start the ritual at the right moment. On the way, the squad remembered Walder and the reasons for his death. For Guise, the mentor remained the person who gave him a chance to become a warrior. Therefore, revenge for Walder became the hero's main personal goal. The northern lands greeted the travelers with snow and a sharp drop in temperature. Supplies had to be distributed more carefully because the route turned out to be longer than expected. Traces of large creatures that lived among the glaciers appeared on the horizon. The guides assumed that the territory of the ice dragon lay nearby. Such a find could provide the expedition with rare materials. At the same time, approaching the dragon threatened all members of the expedition. Guys carefully studied the area and ordered to move without unnecessary noise. The squad reached a frozen gorge where the tracks ended near an underground passage. Inside the cave, the air was so cold that ordinary equipment quickly lost its effectiveness. The travelers began searching for the dragon's body mentioned in ancient records. On the way, they came across fragments of bones and scales covered with a thick layer of ice. The find confirmed that a real ice dragon had died nearby. Part of the creature was preserved almost intact thanks to the frost. Guys determined which materials could be safely taken. Other participants began filling barrels with dragon remains. The work required time, and the cave remained dangerously unstable. While the squad was gathering materials, movement was heard from the depths. Guys assumed that the bones attracted other predators. The travelers prepared weapons and began retreating to the exit. The search for materials turned into a new trial that could ruin the entire expedition. The squad crept through the icy cave, trying not to damage the found materials. Guys noticed that the tracks around belonged to more than one creature. Ahead, blows and rumbling echoed in the tunnels. The travelers prepared for an attack, but first encountered a collapse. Part of the passage was blocked by ice debris, cutting off the short way back. Guys ordered to divide the supplies and continue moving through the narrow gallery. It was difficult to maneuver with barrels there, so every step slowed the squad. At the same time, the cold increased fatigue and reduced people's endurance. One of the companions barely held on to the slippery slope. Guys helped him climb up without letting go of his own equipment. Soon a spacious hall filled with ice debris opened before them. In the center lay a part of a dragon's body that was not noticed during the first inspection. Its size confirmed that the creature belonged to an extremely ancient species. The squad began collecting scales, bones, and other materials suitable for work. Guys explained that they could be used to enhance magical equipment. During the work, he noticed ancient traces leading even deeper underground. There could have been a living creature that survived freezing. Despite the danger, the researchers decided to check the passage. Behind the ice wall, they found a giant figure resembling an old dragon. The creature did not attack immediately, but only observed the uninvited guests. Its body was exhausted by age, but the magical presence remained very strong. Guys realized that before them was not an ordinary predator. The old dragon barely maintained a conversation due to ignorance of the modern human language. The companions used gestures and simple words to explain the purpose of their arrival. The dragon recalled times when people still feared even the mention of his kind. His memory preserved fragments of the ancient history of the northern continent. Guys learned that ice dragons once controlled large territories. Later, their numbers decreased due to wars and hunting for magical materials. The ancient creature did not hide its distrust of humans. However, it agreed to listen to the expedition's explanation. Guys told about the danger of demons and the need to resist them. The dragon linked this threat to events that had already occurred in the distant past. His testimony hinted that demons had existed much longer than the contemporary kingdoms believe. The squad received important information, but did not gain the full trust of the old dragon. While the conversation continued, part of the ice began to crack underfoot. The travelers retreated from the unstable area and dragged the collected barrels. The dragon did not obstruct their departure. On the contrary, he pointed out a safer path to the upper tunnels. Guys memorized the direction and decided to return to this story later. The expedition left the cave as a blizzard had already begun over the continent. Outside, they were met by a strong wind that almost instantly erased the traces of their passage. The squad tied up the cargo and set off for the teleportation circle location. The way back proved to be no less difficult than the descent to the cave. Guys maintained the pace, although the curse was already taking its toll. The others did not allow him to stay ahead alone. Together they reached the prepared platform before nightfall. The collected materials exceeded the initial expectations of the expedition. Guys decided to use them to restore magical power and for future battles. Before departure, he looked back once more at the icy continent and its mysterious inhabitant. Teleportation returned the squad from the frozen desert, but memories of the ancient dragon remained with them. After returning from the icy continent, the squad handed over the collected materials to the masters. Guys met an old acquaintance who told him about the hard life in his village. During the cold season, local residents lacked work and food. The man was forced to work harder to support his family. His memories reminded Guys of the price ordinary people paid for wars. While working with metal, the hero recounted past events. He remembered Walder, who once saved his life. It was the mentor who taught Guys not to retreat before a stronger enemy. The memory of the rescue strengthened the hero's desire to complete his revenge. Guys reported that he had to set out for a cave under the glacier. There remained the bones of a creature needed to make new equipment. Despite warnings about danger, he did not change his decision. Returning to the glacier required supplies and reliable transport. Companions did not allow Guys to set out alone. Together they found a path to the frozen gorge. At the entrance lay the remains of a large beast, blocked by snow. The squad carefully cleared the passage and began retrieving dragon materials. The work was exhausting due to the cold and unstable cave walls. Guys explained that the materials were meant to strengthen his body and weapons. One of the companions reminded that the equipment would not eliminate the danger of the curse. Guys agreed but did not abandon the planned battle. Deep inside the cave, an ancient creature awoke again. The old dragon recognized in Guys a man who sought revenge. The conversation revealed that the dragon remembered the former wars between humans and demons. He did not approve of Guys' desire to die for the sake of revenge. Guys replied that for him revenge was the only way to end the past. The old dragon told about warriors who lost themselves in similar quests. His words did not convince the hero but made him think. Meanwhile, the cave began to collapse under the pressure of ice. The squad retreated to a wider part of the passage. The dragon stayed in place and allowed the people to take the necessary materials. Guys promised to use them not for a senseless death, but for victory. The return to the surface took place during a severe blizzard. The travelers barely reached the teleportation circle. On the way back, Guys felt the curse intensify. Friends supported him and did not allow him to fall into the snow. After teleportation, the hero recovered for several days. Doctors found that his body had lost a significant part of its strength. At the same time, the collected materials were already delivered to the workshop. Guys asked not to start work without his participation. He wanted the new equipment to match his fighting style. The masters agreed to combine dragon materials with metal. The preparation required complex calculations and precise heating. Guys observed the work, although he still could not train fully. His comrades meanwhile checked the news about demons. The collected information confirmed that the next battle was approaching. Guys again recalled Walder and the reason for his curse. The friends understood that the hero was not going to retreat. They promised to help him use the new equipment wisely. The squad faced the goal of preparing Guys for the final step of his revenge. The old dragon decided to test whether Guys was truly ready for battle. He forced the hero to raise his weapon and not rely solely on magic. Guys accepted the trial, although his powers had not yet recovered. The first strikes did not cause noticeable damage to the dragon. The hero realized that ordinary strength would not help against an ancient creature. The dragon responded quickly, forcing Guys to defend himself in a narrow cave. The icy floor complicated movements and deprived the warrior of balance. Guys used the surrounding walls to change the direction of the attack. The old dragon noticed not only rage in him, but also combat experience. The battle was becoming increasingly fierce. Guys used the remainder of his magical power to strengthen his body. The dragon deflected the blow and threw the hero onto the rocks. Companions wanted to intervene, but Guys ordered them to stay aside. He sought to prove that he could fight with his own hands. The enemy began to destroy the ice hall with powerful blows. Debris fell around, forcing the squad to look for a safe place. Guys withstood the assault and prepared a counterattack. His strikes finally broke through the dragon's defense. The ancient creature acknowledged that the human had become stronger. However, it still did not consider the hero ready for true revenge. The dragon explained that hatred without purpose destroyed the warrior himself. Guys tried to respond with a new strike, but the curse weakened his body again. He fell, losing the ability to gather enough magic. Companions rushed to him as the cave began to collapse. The old dragon diverted the collapse away from the people and stopped the fight. Guys admitted that he still could not defeat such an opponent. The dragon did not finish him off and allowed him to leave the cave. Before leaving, he gave the hero the last advice regarding strength. Guys promised to return when he could fight without blind rage. The squad left the icy continent and returned to Valky. In the city, comrades and news of new events awaited Guys. His condition indicated that the expedition had been nearly fatal. Despite the defeat, the hero brought materials for equipment. The craftsmen got to work and began melting dragon bones. The first attempts were unsuccessful due to the extraordinary strength of the material. Metal tools broke without leaving a mark on the bones. Guys insisted on continuing the work, although the masters doubted. Eventually, a way was found to combine bone with a special metal. The new material was to become the basis for armor and weapons. Guys began gradually returning to training. He focused on endurance and control of his own body. Friends watched to ensure the hero did not exceed safety limits. The memory of Walder was no longer just a source of rage for him. Guys began to see in him a legacy and responsibility. During a conversation, he admitted that the mentor would want to see him alive. This realization changed the hero's attitude toward his own death. He still sought to kill the demon, but no longer wished to die unnecessarily. The new equipment gradually took its final form. The masters warned that the product would be exceptionally durable, but would require precise control. Guys prepared for the next stage, combining the memory of his mentor with his own future. After returning, Guys resumed training and began preparing for a new campaign. He focused on searching for information about the human faction of demons. Allies explained that some enemies could disguise themselves among humans. Because of this, open search was dangerous and ineffective. Guys used records from previous investigations. Some witnesses lost their memory after contact with demon magic. Others concealed the truth out of fear of revenge. The team decided to gather information gradually, without attracting attention. Meanwhile, the masters continued working on Guys' armor. The new material combined the properties of dragon bone and strong metal. Its processing required special heating and magical control. The masters discovered that the material reacted to the owner's power. This could turn the armor into a living extension of the body. Guys tested the first parts and felt a significant enhancement. At the same time, the equipment quickly exhausted his magic. He decided to train not only strength, but also the precision of its distribution. Ars observed the sessions and tried to repeat simple exercises. His natural magical potential turned out to be extremely high. The father decided not to leave the child without constant supervision. Ars began to learn to distinguish types of magic and their consequences. Small safe tasks were prepared for him. The boy quickly coped with them, but did not yet fully control the power. Guys explained that excessive magic could harm Ars himself. They decided to conduct training in short but regular sessions. While Ars was training, Guys received a new report about demons. The traces led to the Western lands, where a war had recently ended. There remained ruined settlements and mysterious magical phenomena. Guys suggested that the enemy was using the chaos after the war. The team prepared reconnaissance but could not depart immediately. First, it was necessary to complete the equipment manufacturing. The masters created gloves capable of enhancing physical strikes. The armor began to withstand stronger heat and magical pressure. Guys learned to use the new power in short impulses. This reduced the strain on the cursed body. After training, friends reminded him about the necessity of rest. The hero reluctantly agreed to postpone some of the sessions. Meanwhile, the city was preparing a joint celebration. After long battles, the residents wanted to mark the restoration of peace. Guys initially saw no benefit in this for the campaign. Comrades convinced him that people needed hope. Ours was also to have the opportunity to be among peers. Preparation for the holiday united craftsmen, warriors, and ordinary residents. Guys continued to gather information about the Western faction. Some data indicated a secret network of informants. The enemy might have known about the Allies' movements before they themselves did. Because of this, the command intensified the verification of reports. Guys ordered not to trust any unconfirmed signal. The new armor was almost finished, but it still needed to be tested. Before the holiday, the hero conducted the last training on the open field. Preparation for the campaign was nearing completion, although the invisible enemy remained elusive. The Volk craftsmen completed the primary processing of the ice dragon materials. The new armor combined the strength of steel with the properties of living magic. Guys was surprised that the material responded to his movements. The master explained that the dragon bones retained part of the original power. Proper smithing could turn them into extremely flexible equipment. Guys began testing the armor on mannequins. The first strikes revealed a weak spot in the shoulder protection. The craftsmen redesigned the joints and reinforced the internal structure. After this, the equipment better withstood strong attacks. Guys used body magic to test the limits of the new armor. The result exceeded expectations but quickly exhausted the hero. Companions reminded that the power required precise dosing. Guys began practicing with short sequences of strikes. This is how he learned to combine armor, weapons, and his own body. The master blacksmith suggested adding special inserts to the equipment. They were supposed to better conduct magic and reduce energy loss. Work on the inserts delayed the completion of the armor. Guys used the time to study the map of the Western territories. It marked settlements, ports, and possible demon shelters. The team determined a route that allowed avoiding large garrisons. Scouts reported unusual movements in border towns. The information confirmed that someone was already spying on the Allies. Guys decided not to show the enemy readiness for the campaign. Festive events continued to be prepared in the city. Ars helped decorate houses and learned to work without magic. His father noticed that the boy had become more patient. Training gradually turned into a normal part of the child's life. Guys also allowed himself to postpone military affairs for a short time. Friends began planning a gift for the upcoming wedding anniversary. They wanted to celebrate the event without excessive ceremony. The search for a gift showed that Guys hardly knew peaceful customs. Companions explained why keepsakes were important to the family. The hero decided to create a gift with his own hands. For this, he turned to the craftsmen and asked them to leave some of the materials. The blacksmiths agreed to help, although the work required precision. Guys chose a small metal item that could be worn daily. The material made from dragon bone gave it an unusual shine. The craftsmen taught the hero basic metalworking techniques. The first attempts were rough and unsuitable for a gift. Guys did not give up and started all over again. He realized that the craft required patience as well as practice. Gradually, the item took on a clear shape. Friends noticed that the hero became more attentive to details. Ars observed the work and tried to remember the sequence of actions. At the same time, intelligence sent new information about demons. The team decided to postpone the expedition until the celebration was over. Guys prepared the finished item and hid it until the needed day. The city was filled with decorations, music, and guests. For the first time in a long while, the warriors were preparing not for battle, but for a joint celebration. On the eve of the event, Guys felt that peaceful moments could also be part of his struggle. Guests invited to the family anniversary arrived in the city. Guys tried to keep the preparations secret. His friends arranged the premises and took care of the festive food. Ars helped but was constantly distracted by magical trifles. His father explained to him that the gift only mattered together with care. Guys checked the handmade item himself and corrected the last flaws. The masters evaluated the work and recognized that the hero had learned the basics of the craft. Preparation for the celebration ended without serious problems. When the guests gathered, Guys felt an unusual excitement. He was not used to being the center of a family event. Friends helped him join in the shared entertainment. Ars quickly became the main focus of those present. His natural magic manifested again during the game. Guys stopped the boy in time and turned everything into a safe exercise. The adults saw that Ars's training was already yielding results. The festive ceremony began after the arrival of the last guests. The family recalled the path they had taken from the first difficulties to the current peace. Guys realized that his life was now connected not only with revenge. He handed over a handmade gift during the main part of the event. The item was received with sincere joy, and the hero's tension disappeared. After that, the guests moved on to a communal dinner. The conversation at the table touched on future plans and the safety of Valky. The allies discussed how to maintain peace in the neighboring lands. Guys spoke about the prepared equipment and the upcoming expedition. Those present understood that the celebration did not mean the end of danger. On the contrary, it became a short break before a new trial. After dinner, the guests showed the children simple magical tricks. Ars tried to repeat them and created a much stronger effect. The adults quickly stopped the display of power, not allowing him to damage the house. The boy was upset but accepted the necessity of caution. Guys conducted a short training session with him outdoors. Ars learned to channel energy through small safe objects. This reduced the risk of accidental destruction. Meanwhile, scouts reported unknown movement on the western border. The command verified the report and found traces of demonic magic. Guys decided to start the campaign immediately after completing preparations. The new armor already withstood the main tests. The masters added the final elements that enhanced mobility. Guys received the weapon and checked its compatibility with dragon materials. The first strikes showed that the sword was extremely durable. At the same time, improper use could damage even such a weapon. The hero began training together with comrades in the new gear. His speed and strength noticeably increased. The warriors studied the weak spots of the armor and developed joint maneuvers. Ars observed them and tried not to interfere. Father promised to continue his training after returning. Guys visited the workshop once more to thank for the work. The blacksmith reminded that the true value of the equipment depended on the skill of the owner. The squad prepared supplies, maps, and communication devices. After a short peaceful rest, Guys and his allies were ready again to set out against the demons. After celebrating the family anniversary, the residents discussed Guys' gift for a long time. The handmade ornament became a symbol of his changed attitude towards the family. The hero no longer perceived peaceful events as a waste of time. He noticed that Ars also remembered every calm moment. The next morning, the friends finished cleaning up after the celebration. Guys prepared to return to training and checking the armor. Ars unexpectedly grew and could already perform simple tasks independently. The family marked his coming of age with a small joint walk. During the walk, Guys promised not to leave the boy unprotected. At the same time, he understood that he would soon have to embark on a dangerous journey. Preparation for the journey began with checking the map and the magic circle. The allies identified the place where a forced summoning had to be conducted. The ritual was meant to help establish the identity of the demon connected to Guys' curse. Saikyou prepared restrictive barriers around the site. Other warriors set up protective posts and communication means. Guys checked the equipment and made sure it did not hinder movements. Ars remained nearby, although the adults did not want to let him near the ritual. They explained to the boy that demon magic could be deadly dangerous. Ars promised to obey but continued to watch the preparations. When everything was ready, the squad began the final check of the protective seals. Meanwhile, the family celebrated Ars's 5th birthday. Friends prepared new clothes and a small festive gift for him. The boy received the first elements of his future equipment. The gift combined protective magic with materials suitable for his body. Ars was happy with the attention, but his power again went beyond control. Guys quickly stabilized the magical outburst and returned the boy to a safe zone. Those present at the celebration saw how quickly Ars was developing. The father decided to intensify his training without excessive pressure. After a brief celebration, the squad returned to the ritual site. Everyone understood that now they would have to act without mistakes. The first magical circles of forced summoning activated on the stone. Energy spread around the site and struck the barriers. Saikyou held the seals, although the pressure was rising quickly. Guys took the central place and prepared to meet the demon. The ritual opened a dark passage from which an alien presence burst forth. The protective circles did not allow the creature to immediately leave the boundaries of the site. The warriors saw a silhouette that did not have a usual human form. The demon tried to break the barrier using concentrated magic. Guys activated new equipment and prepared for the attack. The power of the armor allowed him to withstand the first blow. The enemy recognized in Guys the bearer of an ancient curse. The hero realized that he had summoned not a random demon. The creature could be connected to the events that took Walder's life. Saikyou ordered to maintain the barrier while Guys gathered information. The demon did not intend to cooperate and began destroying the seals. The warriors reinforced the ritual circle with additional spells. Ars felt danger even from a distance and began to worry. His magic reacted to the presence of the demon. Guys noticed this and ordered to take the boy away from the site. The forced summoning turned into a real battle even before the investigation was completed. The summoned demon turned out to be stronger than the allies' records had predicted. Its body was made of dark magic and partially retained human features. Guys tried to force the creature to name its master. The demon responded with an attack that widened the cracks in the barrier. Saikyou held the seals, but her strength was quickly diminishing. Ars heard the noise of battle and tried to return to his father. Comrades did not allow him to approach the dangerous zone. Guys used dragon equipment to repel the new magical strike. The defense held, but part of the armor was covered with cracks. The demon realized that direct destruction of the barrier yielded no result. Then he changed form and tried to penetrate through weak spots. The warriors blocked the passages and synchronously strengthened the magical net. Guys saw on the demon's body a mark related to the higher command. The mark confirmed that the opponent was part of a large hierarchy. The ritual allowed hearing fragments of his memories. They recalled demonic wars and orders of an unknown ruler. Guys understood that the curse could have been deliberately directed against him. The demon tried to exploit this weakness, forcing the hero to lose control. Saikyou urged Guys not to succumb to hatred. He gathered himself and changed his battle tactics. Instead of a direct attack, Guys began destroying the supports of the magical circle. This forced the demon to lose part of its advantage. The warriors simultaneously narrowed the barrier and reduced the space for movement. The opponent began to lose form under the pressure of protective magic. However, he still had a reserve of power obtained from an unknown source.
He slowly ran his hand over his chin and thoughtfully softened his gaze.
Ars found himself in danger when the dark wave rushed towards the house. Guys left the central circle and rushed to protect his son. His armor absorbed the blow but did not completely stop the wave. Saikyou completed the seal and cut the demon off from the main flow of magic. The creature weakened but could still move. Guys engaged her in close combat. The new sword pierced the demon's defense and damaged its magical core. The opponent tried to restore the body from scattered energy. The warriors did not allow him to gather enough strength. Ars used a small controlled burst to close the breach. Guys saw that the boy consciously helped in a dangerous situation for the first time. Together they held the last line of defense. The demon lost the ability to resist. Before disappearing, he left a fragment of information about 4 powerful rulers. These beings ruled different parts of the demonic world. Guys realized that the curse was connected to one of them. After the ritual was completed, the site remained destroyed. Saikyou and other participants were injured by magical backlash. Ars apologized for his careless outburst. The father explained that the boy did everything necessary to save the people. New information forced the allies to reconsider the campaign plan. Now they needed to find a way to the demonic realm. Before leaving, Guys decided to complete Ars's training. The first encounter with the summoned demon revealed the scale of the upcoming war. After the ritual, the allies investigated the traces left by the demon. They discovered that demonic creatures did not have ordinary physical bodies. Their forms consisted of magic and spiritual energy. Such nature explained the demon's ability to recover after injuries. In the demonic realm, power determined the status of each creature. The highest rulers controlled armies and large territories. Among them, 4 heavenly kings stood out especially. Guys associated one of them with his own curse. Military records indicated that these rulers rarely lost battles. Saikyou explained that a direct invasion of the demonic realm was impossible. Even strong mages could not endure the local environment for long. The allies decided to use a controlled challenge for reconnaissance. The ritual was supposed to open a short passage to the enemy world. Guys prepared the equipment and strengthened the protective spells. Ars remained under adult supervision, but his magic manifested again. The boy felt that his father was preparing for an especially dangerous battle. Guys promised to return and not let fear control decisions. The ritual circle opened a dark space between the 2 worlds. Creatures that guarded the passage emerged from it. The warriors engaged in battle to prevent them from surrounding Guys. The hero activated the dragon gear and broke through the first line. His attacks cut through the demonic shells but did not destroy them completely. Saikyou used barriers to keep the enemies at a distance. Gradually, the passage began to fluctuate unstably. Guy saw a huge labyrinth in the depths of a foreign world. He understood that demonic forces used him as a military fortress. The ritual allowed penetration inside only for a short time. Guys moved forward, searching for the trail of the demon connected with the curse. Corridors made of stone and living flesh appeared around him. The labyrinth responded to magic and changed its internal structure. Guys used the power of his equipment to forge a path. The enemy tried to separate him from his allies. Ars felt his father through a magical connection and passed him strength. Brief support helped Guys hold on after a strong blow. Huge insect-like creatures appeared in the labyrinth. Their armor withstood ordinary attacks. Warriors began to search for weak spots between the segments of the bodies. One of the monsters released a poisonous liquid. Guys protected his comrades and burned the poison with a magical strike. The poisonous vapor quickly filled the corridor. The team retreated to a more spacious hall. There they saw traces of a large demonic colony. The labyrinth turned out to be not a natural dungeon, but an artificial weapon. Its walls absorbed the magic of those who tried to pass. Guys realized that the enemy was preparing a trap for strong warriors. The allies united their forces and began to chart a route back. At the same time, a voice of an unknown ruler came from the depths. He called Guys an unusual opponent and became interested in his curse. The passage began to close, forcing the squad to accelerate their retreat. The first raid into the demonic labyrinth ended with the discovery of a new major threat. After returning from the labyrinth, Guys immediately began analyzing the obtained information. The demonic labyrinth turned out to be part of a huge underground system. Its inhabitants hunted any living creatures that penetrated inside. The allies decided to repeat the raid with better preparation. This time they took air purification devices and additional barriers. Guys ordered not to split up even in case of an attack. The passage opened in another part of the labyrinth. The team immediately encountered thickets created from demonic matter. Small creatures moved around, transmitting signals to larger monsters. The warriors began to clear a path through the living roots. Guys noticed that the labyrinth reacted to every magical flash. He reduced the power of the attacks to avoid attracting unnecessary attention. Large insects with acidic shells appeared ahead. Their number was rapidly increasing. Saikyou created a protective field that allowed the squad to hold their positions. Ars, who remained outside the labyrinth, supported his father through communication. Guys used a new technique to destroy the front group of monsters. The explosion cleared a path, but at the same time collapsed part of the ceiling. The warriors barely avoided the debris and continued moving. Behind the collapse, a hall filled with insect eggs was revealed. The allies realized they were inside a nest. They began to retreat, but the labyrinth blocked the previous path. From the depths of the hall appeared a larger monster, resembling an insect-like general. Its armor absorbed part of the magical attacks. Guys tried to break the defense with a physical strike. The general repelled the hero and destroyed several barriers. Saikyou used the remainder of her strength to protect the wounded. Guys forced himself to stand up despite the pain. He saw that the monster was guarding the path to the central part of the labyrinth. There could be a creature there that controlled the entire colony. The hero began to attack the weak spot under the armor. The insect-like general tried to poison him with an acid stream. The new armor withstood the blow, but its surface began to deteriorate. Guys used dragon material magic and strengthened the sword. He pierced the armor and damaged the monster's inner core. The general retreated, opening the way to the depths. The team followed him, hoping to find the main enemy. The walls of the labyrinth began to contract, reacting to the damage to the colony. The warriors were forced to move faster. A shadow of one of the demonic rulers appeared in the central hall. He did not engage in battle, but only observed Guys' actions. His presence increased the pressure on all raid participants. Ars felt this pressure and tried to help his father. The magical connection became unstable but did not break. Guys received a brief surge of power and destroyed the central seal. The labyrinth began to collapse from within. The demonic ruler ordered the colony to destroy the foreigners. The squad found itself amidst an avalanche of debris and living roots. Guys covered his comrades and opened the way to the exit. Before retreating, he heard the enemy's promise to return to him. Returning from the labyrinth, the allies gathered all evidence about its ruler. They established that the enemy belonged to the strongest demons. Old records called him one of the 4 heavenly kings. Guys realized that he had accidentally entered into a fight with the top of the demonic army. The team began preparing for a new invasion. Meanwhile, in the demonic realm, they discussed the appearance of an unusual human enemy. His strength grew after each clash. The demons assumed that the curse helped Guys fight their magic. One of the rulers ordered to investigate the origin of the hero. Scouts found mentions of Walder and an ancient war. Thus, the demonic side learned about Guys' connection with the legendary warrior. In Valky, Guys continued training despite the armor damage. The masters quickly restored the protective plates. Saikyou improved the barriers for passing through the labyrinth. Ars began learning to steadily transmit power over a distance. His progress allowed his father to count on support in battle. Allies prepared a joint tactic against the demonic ruler. The plan involved a simultaneous strike on several points of the labyrinth. They wanted to deprive the enemy of the ability to alter space. A new passage opened in the middle of the ruined hall. This time, several powerful demons were waiting beyond the barrier. They guarded the path to the main center of the labyrinth. Guys ordered not to engage all opponents at once. The squad split into small groups and began destroying the support seals. The demons responded with swift attacks from different directions. Saikyou held the central barrier, but her defense began to crack. Guys broke through to one of the generals of the demonic army. The opponent turned out to be a creature with wings and extraordinary speed. He attacked the hero from the air and did not allow him to get close. Guys used magical spheres to limit the space for flight. The demon dodged most attacks but lost part of his advantage. Ars transferred additional energy to his father through a magical link. Guys reinforced his armor and jumped towards the enemy. The strike damaged the demon's wing and forced him to land. The allies took advantage of the moment and destroyed another seal. The labyrinth began to lose stability. Other demons tried to restore the magical nodes. Saikyou redirected the barrier and blocked their access. Guys engaged in close combat with the wounded general. The demon called himself part of the army serving the main ruler. His body healed faster than the hero expected. Guys realized that ordinary wounds would not stop such an enemy. He concentrated magic into one precise strike. The strike pierced the demonic core and stopped the restoration. The general lost his form and dissolved into the dark stream. Victory opened the way to the central zone of the labyrinth. there appeared an even more powerful presence. Guys felt a familiar trace of the curse. The team realized that they had finally approached the true source of the threat. The central hall filled with magic as one of the heavenly kings began to step forward. The demonic ruler stood before the squad and blocked all paths of retreat. His presence was so strong that ordinary barriers began to collapse. Guys ordered his comrades to focus on protecting ours. He himself prepared to take the first blow of the enemy. The demon released a magical sphere capable of piercing several layers of defense. Guys covered his allies and repelled the attack with his own armor. The blow threw the hero back but did not break his equipment. The enemy was surprised that the man withstood such force. Guys used a short pause to create his own magical spheres. His attacks began to destroy the space around the demonic ruler. The enemy responded with a barrier composed of several layers of magic. Saikyou and other allies supported Guys, not allowing him to be alone. Together they stopped the first wide explosion. The demonic labyrinth began actively absorbing the energy of all participants. Ars transmitted another impulse of power to his father, despite the danger to himself. Guys used this impulse to strengthen the main attack. The magical spheres struck simultaneously at several points of the enemy's barrier. The defense cracked, but the demon did not lose the ability to fight. He opened an additional space and tried to surround the squad. The allies found themselves among the moving walls of the labyrinth. Guys destroyed the nearest wall and returned the team's path to the center. The demonic ruler revealed the true scale of his power. His attack destroyed part of the labyrinth and forced everyone to retreat. Guys stayed on his feet thanks to the dragon armor. The curse began to consume his magical energy again. The hero realized that the long fight would end in his exhaustion. He decided to take a risk and gather all available power into one spell. Ars and Saikyou helped stabilize the magical field around him. Guys unleashed a concentrated attack that pierced several layers of defense. The demonic ruler deflected part of the blow, but received serious damage for the first time. His body began to disintegrate, and the labyrinth lost control over the space. Before disappearing, the demon promised to return and finish the hunt for Guys. The squad broke free from the destructive labyrinth, but the real war with the four heavenly kings had only just begun.